Great Tribal Chief. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51, I Want to Beat You Up. The wild fox and the few warriors shrank their necks in unison. The wild fox didn't dare to hold on anymore, and obediently led the cow to walk over and tied it. Jiao Niu and Lynx have supported Kuai-Ma and Hardbone. Hardbone raised his right hand and nodded the wild fox, who came back and said, "It was the wild fox who moved first." Kuai-Ma didn't let him lead the bull. He hit Kuai-Ma too first. After slapped, Kuai-Ma wanted to fight back, and was caught by those people. The wild fox broke Kuai-Ma's nose with another punch. "This guy broke my arm." The Hardbone pointed at the knife just now. The man with his neck said. Hardbone still can't distinguish the difference between a fracture and a dislocation. He just knows that his left arm can no longer move, and it is very, very painful, so he thinks his arm has been broken. Shi Xiong faintly looked at the wild fox in front of him. Although this guy was a little scared, he still stubbornly stuck his neck. Shi Xiong shook his head slightly, suddenly raised his hand, and a mouth was drawn on the cheek of the wild fox. Looking at the slap of the stone bear, it seemed that he didn't use much force, but the wild fox was stunned by the slap and turned around, and then stuck his head on the ground. His right cheek seemed to be inflated. The red balloon in the middle swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the next moment, Shi Xiong's other hand had already grasped the man who had just been put on his neck by the steel knife. He was about to take off the guy's arm vigorously, when he heard a loud shout from a distance, "Stop!" This voice is relatively familiar. Even if Shi Xiong did not hear it many times, he still remembered it. Shi Xiong's mouth curled upward slightly, revealing a mocking smile. Sure enough, the person behind the scenes who guessed in his heart was this guy. But, what can even this guy do? People who moved Lao Tzu? Lao Tzu cares who you are. Even Li Lei can't stop Lao Tzu from taking revenge. So, Shi Xiong just showed a smile that looked like a devil smile, and immediately after his right hand burst into force, Shi Xiong let go of the man amid the screams of the man. It's just that the man's left arm has been completely slumped down, and it is no different from the boneless left arm. "You," the voice called out angrily again. Shi Xiong turned around and looked motionlessly at the 7 or 8 people who trot out. Among them, it was the warrior leader Wolftail, who had gone out with Shi Xiong to capture the bison. Wolftail looked very angry. He walked in front of Shi Xiong angrily, looked at the big man who was almost a head taller than him, stared at him, bit his cheek and asked, "Why do you want to attack the tribe? They are all your people. How can you treat them like this?" "My tribe?" Shi Xiong said slightly. "Well, I admit that they are my tribe, but why should my tribe attack my brother? Don't say you didn't see the hard bones and the injuries on Kuai-Ma. Don't say you don't know how this happened. They said that my 2 brothers had offended them, and then they beat them like this. Don't they know that my 2 brothers belong to their clan?" "You? Me? What am I?" Wolftail. "Don't look for those reasons. You know best why my 2 brothers were beaten. But don't forget, they are my brothers, and my brother was beaten by yours. Now, they can't resist, but I can. I can't sit and watch my brother being bullied like this without showing anything." As he said, Shi Xiong stepped forward abruptly, and a brutal murderous aura and might suddenly burst out of his body, and he even scared the ruthless man Wolftail and took a step back involuntarily. The stone bear condescendingly looked at the half-stretched face of the Wolftail. "Your guy beat my brother, and I beat him back for my brother. According to the rules of the tribe, the matter between them will be evened. Do you recognize it? If you don't recognize it, it doesn't matter. Your people can come and fight with me now. Heads up or group fights." I will continue. The words heads up and group fight made Wolftail stunned for a moment. He had never heard of these 2 words before, and it took him a long time to understand the meaning of these 2 words. But he looked at Shi Xiong's thick and strong body like a mountain, and remembered the amazing spear that this big man had when he hunted that bull bison when he went out hunting with him the day before yesterday. He thought about it for a long time. In the end, he bit his cheek and said in a muffled voice, The matter between them is even." As he said, Wolf's Tail waved at the soldiers behind him, and said in a deep voice, "Help them back, don't make a fool of yourself here." At this time, dozens of people from the tribe have gathered around this place, and they all rushed to watch the excitement after hearing the news. The men behind the wolf tail were about to help the wild foxes, but Shi Xiong said in a deep voice, "Go." "Who let you go? Do you want to go with my consent?" "What do you mean?" Wolf Tail asked angrily. "What do I mean? It's very simple. The matter between my two brothers and your subordinates is even, but you haven't given me an explanation for the matter between the two of us." "Wolf Tail, I ask you, who will give it?" "Your guts let you come and lead my cow." "Your cow? How could this be your cow?" "Don't forget that I brought this cow back with the people." "Why is this your cow?" "Yes, you brought this cow back with your tribe, but what you called was a bison. When I put a nose ring on this bison, the bison was tamed. Although it is still owned by the tribe, but the current right to use is in my hands." This is what the leader Lila and the Kabul sacrifice have personally said. "Why do you want to deny the command of the leader in Kabul sacrifice?" These words directly cannot say a word of the wolf's tail choking. Read www.hukanshu.com, but he couldn't say that this was the leader Lila's suggestion that he did it. If this sentence were spoken, it would be a big mess. "Then what do you want to do?" Wolftail asked muffledly. "What do I want to do? It's very simple. The people guarding our people apologize to me in person." "Apologize?" The wolf-tail snorted coldly, and then raised his eyes to look at the stone bear. "You are worthy of making me apologize? You don't look at what identity it is. You are just a fugitive to the tribe. In the tribe, you are the most humble bastard. What right do you have to make me apologize?" Shi Xiong smiled slightly, then raised his voice and said, "My people, have you all heard what Wolf's Tail said? He said that my great bear is a bastard. This is the most important thing to a Kabul sacrificial guardian." Insult. The people around the clansmen all made incredibly surprised sounds after hearing the words of Wolf's Tail. How could Wolf's Tail say that? How could he say this to Master Guardian? Hearing Shi Xiong's words, Wolf Tail immediately realized that the loophole in his words was caught by the sky, and he whispered, "Don't use the people to press me down. What do you want to do besides apologizing? What are you doing? His sister has long seen you not pleasing to your eyes. I want to beat you," Shi Xiong said in a voice that only two people can hear, and then raised his voice again. "Wolf's Tail, you are a song in the tribe. I actually said this to me, the guardian of the Kabul sacred. You are insulting me. You are insulting the guardian of the Kabul. So, as a warrior, I will fight you." The wolf's tail was dumbfounded, and the surrounding clansmen shouted aloud. Chapter 52. Havaso. Like the noble duels in Europe long ago, there is also a duel custom that has been passed down for a long time in many North American Indian tribes. Even the later duels between the cowboys of the American West also combined the duels between the European nobles and the North American Indians, developed in a way. The difference is that duels between European aristocrats seldom lead to life. The duel between gentlemen is more like a power to redistribute property triggered by honor. In contrast, whether it is a duel between North American Indian tribesmen with fists or cold weapons, or a duel by Western cowboys with a cold revolver, almost all ended up with death, the end point. Therefore, many historians in later generations said that the duel between European aristocrats was more like a farce, while the duel between North American Indians and Western cowboys was a human tragedy. Don't look at the North American Indians. Different tribes often fight each other because of the territory, but within the tribe, it is strictly forbidden to kill each other. As the saying goes, where there are people, there are rivers and lakes, and where there are rivers and lakes, there are grievances. Even if the North American Indians are still in the primitive age of ignorance, there are still many internal disputes. Food, spouse, status, etc. are all sources of disputes. However, it is not easy for the Indians themselves to fight with other tribes and against nature. Every tribe is an extremely precious resource for the tribe, so over time, many North American Indian tribes have formed within the Forbidden Tribes, the ban on cannibalism between This is not only true of Cherokee people, but also Iroquois, Sioux people, Navajo. But the tribes have to find a suitable and reasonable outlet for the disputes and even hatred between the tribes, so the custom of dueling has also formed. If there are irreconcilable contradictions or even hatred between the clansmen within each tribe, then they can fight in the witness of the clansmen. If you win, you can get everything about your enemies or enemies, including the lives of your enemies or enemies. Similarly, if you lose, then you will also lose everything, even your life. It's like now. Wolftail openly insulted a noble guardian of the Kabul sacrifice. This is absolutely impossible, especially the stone bear, the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice. If he cannot maintain the honor of the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice at this time, then he will not survive in the tribe. Not only the Kabul sacrifice will deprive him of his guardian status, he can no longer stand in the tribe. The guardian of the Kabul sacrifice is a very noble identity in the entire Cherokee tribe. Even if the Kabul sacrifice lives in this small tribe of tall trees, the Kabul sacrifice is important to the entire Cherokee tribe, is extremely important. It is no exaggeration to say that as the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice, his status is higher than that of ordinary tribal leaders, and he can even be the leader of the Red City Alliance or the White City Alliance. After all, in the Cherokee tribe of tens of thousands, only 2 lucky people can become the guardians of the Kabul sacrifice. This honor is a very high honor, but if you become a guardian of the Kabul sacrifice, then you must not only use your life to protect the sacrifice of Kabul, but also protect the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice honor. Therefore, Shi Xiong's request for a duel to Wolftail is not excessive at all, and even he did this to give Wolftail a face. After all, Wolftail's position in the tribe is very high. He was even almost selected by leader Li Lei as the successor of the next leader of the tribe. Of course, if the stone bear does not give face, as the guardian of Kabulu's sacrifice, after Wolftail said the words just now, he killed Wolftail on the spot, and all the people including Li Lei would not say anything. What? No one dares to oppose, because whoever dares to oppose means that he is opposing the Kabul sacrifice. The Wolftail was dumbfounded. He was really dumbfounded. Fighting with this big man is no different from looking for death. Going out hunting with this big man these days. Wolftail has never seen how this guy hunted a red deer or a bison alone. It usually takes 7 or 8 warriors or even more than a dozen warriors to hunt and kill this kind of large animal. This big man can kill it by himself, and his combat power is no one singled out with this guy. What is it that is not looking for death? At this time, if Wolftail says he doesn't regret it, it's just nonsense. I knew that this guy was going to a duel with him, so I shouldn't have said that quickly just now. It is strange to say that although the stone bear is very popular with other tribesmen, it is very unpopular with the wolf's tail. Even Wolftail doesn't know why. Maybe this guy in front of him took away his son's chance to become the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice, or maybe this guy is too strong, or even the ups and downs that this guy has made since these days. Anyway, all this makes Wolftail feel very uncomfortable. www.wuxiaspot.com. If there's a psychologist of later generations here, then he can clearly make an incisive summary of the psychology of Wolftail: envy, jealousy, hate. But no matter what you say, it's too late now. The dozens of people from the surrounding tribes have begun to shout Hawasuo in unison, which is a slogan agreeing to a duel. The scene just now and the words spoken by Wolftail, these people have all heard. Therefore, no one of the tribe felt that there was anything wrong with the matter that the Great Bear proposed to fight. This is a custom that has been circulating for thousands of years. Now the wolf's tail is really grilled on the fire. Agree, I must be beaten to death by this big man. Don't agree, his status and reputation in the tribe will plummet, and will be looked down upon by all the tribesmen. If the wolf's tail also crossed over, he would definitely say, what should I do about this kind of dilemma? Wait online, it's very urgent. But Shi Xiong didn't plan to give this guy a chance. The wolf's tail is not pleasing to the eyes of the stone bear, so why does the stone bear look at this guy pleasing to the eye? As Shi Xiong said just now, Lao Tzu wanted to punch her a long time ago. just as Shi Xiong squeezed his fists and made a gappa sound, and the wolf's tail looked as if he was speechless with constipation. A large number of people walked over again in the distance. Is the leader of Lilei and Kabulu's sacrifice. The stone bear with good eyes can clearly see the anxious look of leader Lilei, while the face of Kabulu's sacrifice is full of anger. By their side, Old Wood seemed to be saying something to them. P.S. The new week begins again. Laumo kneels for a recommendation. Chapter 53, Glory is My Life. The duel between the tribesmen and the tribe can only be carried out after the simultaneous consent of the tribe leader and the priest. If the duel is carried out without the consent of the leader and the priest, it is not called a duel. It is called a private fight, and it will be considered by the tribe to be a violation ban. Therefore, even if the stone bear really wants to beat the wolf's tail, or even interrupt the limbs of this guy, before that, his duel request must have the leader Lilei and Kabulu sacrifice. Agree, otherwise, even Stone Bear would not be able to slap the wolf's tail happily. Yes, although Shi Xiong hates this guy very much, even if this guy really did a lot when catching cows, Shi Xiong hates this guy from the bottom of his heart. There is no reason to hate it. To paraphrase Hosea, this situation between the two of them is called fouling. But Shi Xiong didn't want to kill this guy. After all, the hatred between the two hasn't reached the point where life and death are fighting. Well, that's wrong. It's not a life and death fight. It should have not reached the point where Shi Xiong unilaterally killed this guy. Ishikama simply hates this guy. This guy is not guilty of death. I can only make this guy a lame leg and break his arm, and staying in bed for a few months is enough for the stone bear to vent his anger. Lilei and Hong Yun, accompanied by a group of people, walked quickly to the two of them. The wild fox on the side had just shaken his head and stood up. But this guy is really miserable. One face is normal, but the other side is swollen like a ball. It looks very weird. And after this guy got up with difficulty, not only did he spit out a mouthful of blood containing a few posterior molars, but he also stood crookedly. How strong is the stone bear right now? This slap is still the stone bear slapped hard. If he really slaps the wild fox hard, the small physique of the wild fox, it is estimated that a slap can hit his neck, give it off. Therefore, the wild fox not only lost a few posterior molars, but his face was also swollen. At this time, his mind was buzzing, and he was dizzy and nauseous. Although Shi Xiong slapped didn't break his neck, there was definitely a slight concussion. The miserable appearance of the wild foxes evenly Lilei and Hong Yun jerked their mouths when they saw it, but they did not have a strange stone bear privately attacking the tribe. Old Wood had already talked about what happened in the morning just now. Although Lilei knew what was going on, Hong Yun didn't do it. Don't look at the Kabul sacrifice who doesn't speak much in the tribe, but once they express their opinions, even the tribe leader must listen obediently. Even if Lilei is Hong Yun's uncle. After all, the dozens of tribes around here, including the Gaoshu tribe, are all descendants of the Kabul sacrifice, and the Kabul sacrifice is the most talkative in this area. The man with the wolf tail beat the guardian for no reason. As the eldest brother, the guardian took revenge for his men. No one can tell. The most important thing is that the guardian is very measured. It seems that the wild fox and the soldiers were beaten very badly, but they were not life-threatening and there were no serious injuries. In addition, Hong Yun was watching, so Lilei was not good at scolding the stone bear. Well, the most important thing was that he didn't have the qualifications to scold the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice. What is going on? Lilei asked in a deep voice. Although he had deliberately kept the method of taming the bison secret, and also wanted to bring the female bison into the tribe, it was only an idea after all. It involved the stupid head of the guardian who became extremely magical, and Lilei was not very arbitrary. Gang, he needs to seek the consent of Hong Yun. What Lilei didn't expect was that he just revealed his thoughts to Wolf's Tail last night. This guy actually did such an extraordinary thing. Isn't it all right? However, as the boss of the Wolf Tail, Lilei must also maintain the Wolf Tail at this time, otherwise his prestige will be compromised. Wolf's Tail opened his mouth to explain, but as soon as he looked up, he saw an angry Kaburu priest staring at him. which made Wolf's Tail suddenly afraid to speak. Although the Wolf's Tail is very strong and manages the warriors of the tribe, he is nothing in front of the Kabru sacrifice. Don't say it's him. If Kabilu's sacrifice is really true, even her uncle Lilei will do nothing to speak. Shi Xiong didn't care about this or that, and immediately recounted the process of this incident. The people with the wolf tail came to grab the cow and the fast horse, and the hard bones were beaten. Old Wood had already told Lilei and Hong Yun. He was on the scene when this happened. Shi Xiong didn't want to be partial, so he told the truth. Honorable Kabru sacrifice and Chief Lilei, my people tamed the bison and temporarily tamed this cow. You two agreed in front of all the people, but the wolf-tail instructed his men to come over to grab the cow and take me. I've been beaten by someone. What does this mean? Could my brother and I, just because they're outsiders who just joined the Gaoshu tribe, can let people be bullied like this? At the end, www.wuxiaspot.com. Shik couldn't help it. Rao asked. This is a bit ridiculous. But Hashikama wanted to make things bigger, and he was in control, so he wouldn't let this opportunity pass. At this time, Lilei certainly wouldn't say that he had this idea, and the wolf's tail was a bit more radical to cause the current situation. If he said it out, the tribe would be better off, but Kabilu would definitely not do it. So Lilei just pondered for a moment, and then whispered, "Guardian, can you discuss the matter of the duel?" As soon as Lilei's words were spoken, Shi Xiong hadn't answered yet. Hong Yun on the side spoke first. Leader Lilei, this matter cannot be discussed. Great Bear is my guardian. Before my mother died, this was me. My mother personally decided something for me, but Wolftail said that my guardian is the humblest bastard, so what am I? Don't look at Hong Yun, who just inherited the Kabru sacrifice, but don't forget her character. She was originally a female character, and her eyes could not tolerate any sand. Now someone publicly insulted her guardian, and this guardian still the son of God. If she didn't say a word, the slap would really fall on her. Hong Yun faced. The stone bear on the side was anxious to make matters worse, so when Hong Yun finished saying this, he immediately took the stubborn words with his hands on his chest and said, "As the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice, glory is my life. Once the glory of the Kabul sacrifice is tarnished, the guardian will wash it with the blood of the enemy." Leader Lilei, Kabul sacrifice, please allow Kabul sacrifice the guardian Great Bear to the High Tree Tribe warrior Kui Wolftail a request for a duel. As soon as he said this, Hong Yun's face was overjoyed, Lilei's face was bitter, and as for the wolf's tail, his face was pale. Chapter 54, It feels so good to beating. Very cool, it's really cool. 2 lifetimes have never been so cool. The stone bear in the previous life is a concrete otaku. If there is no mission, it is the museum and the home. He is too lazy to eat even if he eats. That is to say, thanks to the development of science and technology, you can see wearing michin everywhere. Are you hungry? Shi Xiong wouldn't be starved to death if he was a takeaway boy in a company's yellow vest. And in terms of the character of Shi Xiong in previous life, he would not dare fight with others. Of course, if you encounter a fight on the street, then the guy outside who is holding the phone to shoot while yelling the most must be him. Therefore, Shi Xiong really didn't expect to fight. It should be said that it was so cool to beat people unilaterally. No wonder that most of the people who saw those fights on the street in the previous life were at a loss. I wish I could run away with 2 more legs, and the guy who was stained would surely want to give his opponent 2 more shots. This is clearly addicted to beating people. Wolftail is considered a top warrior in the Gaoshu tribe, and he still holds the position of tribal warrior Kui. People who have less than a certain level of force cannot serve as warrior Kui. So Wolftail used to be very proud. But today he was really miserable, and he was beaten miserably by the tall man. Although the wolf's tail can still stand still, no matter who sees him, he can't help but feel sympathy. Who is this kid offending? How could you be beaten so badly? If Wolf's Tail is still alive, I'm afraid she won't recognize her son. The wolf's tail has white and neat teeth. When he occasionally smiles, the white teeth are very enviable. But now, for the clean and neat teeth, There are only 4 upper and lower front teeth and 4 upper and lower canine teeth left, and the large molars behind are all sprayed out with a mouthful of blood and saliva. The originally strong bridge of the nose was now lying on his face like a caterpillar, and the entire bridge of the nose was smashed into sections by Shi Xiong's big sand bowl fist. An originally cold face, now more like a pig's head than a pig's head, 2 eyes that were originally gloomy and gleaming from time to time, now they have completely turned into 2 purple peaches. As for the body covered by the clothes, it is also blue and purple at this time. Anyway, there is no good place for the whole body. Wolf's tail also wanted to cry without tears. He knew that Silly Head was powerful and able to fight, but he really didn't expect this guy to fight so well, and this guy is simply non-human. When the stone bear said those words to Lilea and Kabu sacrifice, Wolf Tail knew that this duel was inevitable. After all, this guy even moved out the glory of Kabu sacrifice, so don't it is said that it isn't the High Tree tribe, even in the entire Cherokee tribe, once this huge reason is moved out, then absolutely no one will stop the duel from happening. So, in the voice of Hawasuo from the people of the tribe, the Wolf Tail and the Big Bear met. Originally, Wolf Tail was still very confident in his skill. He was not as strong as the big man, but in terms of flexibility, he would definitely win. As long as you adopt the method of fighting in a duel, even if you can't beat the big man, at least self-preservation should be absolutely fine. So after the duel started, Wolf Tail began to fight, trying to use his agility to get rid of the big man's attack. What he didn't expect was that the big man looked stupid, but once he started fighting, this guy was more agile than the monkeys in the treetops and the fish in the water. In fact, let alone the Wolf Tail, even the surrounding audience are a little dumbfounded. They couldn't imagine that a huge man who was more than 2 meters tall and weighed nearly 250 kilograms was even more agile than a monkey. This is too unscientific. If Shi Xiong's flexible and unreasonable posture only makes Wolf Tail feel helpless, then Shi Xiong's heavy fist is simply Wolf Tail's nightmare. Shi Xiong's 2 fists look like 2 big stone hammers. His sister's is hard and heavy, let alone hitting her body. Even if it is a little scratched, it will be hot and painful. Especially when the Wolf Tail was hit by a fist from the stone bear on the bridge of the nose, the disaster of the Wolf Tail even started completely. Within just 10 seconds, Wolf Tail felt as if he was really spinning around in hell, and he didn't even feel any pain when he went down and down. Some were just boundless numbness. The most unfortunate thing is that this big man is not only flexible, his fists are fierce and heavy, and his body is also like a huge rock. After the great bear loosed the Wolf Tail all over the body, he smiled and said to the Wolf Tail, "Come on, I'm reading www.hukenshu.com, just let me hit you. I'm a little bit embarrassed. You come hit me, I won't hide. Whoever hides will be a bastard." So, the angry Wolf Tail didn't care about anything else, and wailed sadly with his throat, then raised his fist and exhausted his whole body's strength and punched the stone bear in the chest. He wanted to hit the stone bear. What about his head? But he is a little short, his fists can't reach. This punch that exhausted the anger and strength of the Wolf's Tail, and hit the stone bear in the chest impartially. As he said, the stone bear did not evade. The onlookers felt that the guardian was very likely to suffer a big loss under this punch. After all, Wolf Tail was also a master of the tribe. But the fact once again shocked everyone's jaw. The punch hit Shi Xiong's chest severely, but Shi Xiong just seemed to have been bitten by a mosquito, and his face remained unchanged. The Wolf's Tail uttered an even worse scream accompanied by a clear and audible click sound. The crowd onlookers could clearly see that the right hand of the Wolf's Tail had taken on a very strange posture, as if the punch of the Wolf's Tail that contained all the strength of the whole body was not hit on the guardian's chest, but on a piece, on the huge rock. The guardian Sama almost shattered the fist of the Wolf's Tail with the force of the body's counter-shock. This is a bit too scary. Could it be that the flesh and blood of Lord Guardian was changed from stone? Otherwise, how could his body be so hard? Put it aside first, whether the body is hard or not. The wolf-tailed stone bear holding his hand is not thinking about hitting him again. The stinky beating just now has completely relieved the stone bear. It turns out that the feeling of beating is so cool. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, Caveat. A bunch of people are dumbfounded. I have seen a duel, but I have never seen such a duel. Where's this special duel? This is simply one-sided abuse and abuse. If these Indians have watched the Hollywood blockbuster Terminator in later generations, then they will definitely have the same idea. That is the duel of the Guardian bullying the warrior Cuckoo. It is simply the Terminator T-800 bullying ordinary people. Same. The two are simply not in the same heavyweight class. Fortunately, Lord Guardian did not want to kill the wolf tail, otherwise, with the strength of the wolf tail, it would really be tortured to death by Lord Guardian every minute. Shi Xiong did not really have the idea of killing the wolf's tail. After all, although this guy is hateful and annoying, he still wouldn't let himself kill him. It's enough to clean up and let him learn a lesson. Of course, the reason why the stone bear violently abused the wolf's tail in front of the entire tribe also meant to stand up. I don't want to participate in your fight for power, but you had better not pull Laon in, otherwise don't blame Lao Tzu for kicking the table. Anyway, the identity of Lao Tzu, the son of God, has been unanimously recognized by the senior leaders of the tribe. Coupled with his increasingly mighty force value, who dares to stab himself in the future? First think about today's wolf tail. Hong Yun, the Cabra priest's face is full of joy. As the high priest of the tribe, her guardian can defeat the enemy. This is to give the high priest a long face. And the great bear is so tossing. Who in the tribe would dare to look down upon me? Hong Yun. Those who dare to disrespect me, first consider the mighty guardian great bear. Leader Li Lei's face was an expression of indescribable expression. He is now convinced of the identity of the son of the god of the great bear, but now the son of Pia hit the wolf's tail at this time, although the scar fell on the body of the wolf's tail, but he was the one who lost face. Everyone knows that the wolf tail is his subordinate to Li Lei. The wolf tail is so miserably cleaned up in full view, how can his boss's face shine? But Li Lei didn't dare to do anything. One was Kabilu offering sacrifices, and the other was the Son of God. This was not something that Li Lei could offend. Therefore, Li Lei had no choice but to turn around and leave in the end. However, he just walked a few steps when he was stopped by Shi Xiong. Shi Xiong took Li Lei to the side, and then said in a low voice, "Chief, I have always respected you as a leader, now and in the future. But there is one thing you better understand, that this kind of temptation will provoke me in the future. You and your subordinates had better not do it again. I have no idea about the power in the tribe, and I don't want to get caught up in the power struggle. What I want to do now is to give me the things that the Supreme Sun will give me as soon as possible. Do it for the benefit of our entire tribe. Of course, if you really want something, you can directly give me your Cabra sacrifice. As long as the conditions permit, I will not refuse. But please remember one thing, what I do now, all of this will ultimately belong to the entire tribe. Therefore, at this time, it is best not to disturb me. I just need to cooperate, not to disturb me." Li Lei was shocked by this. Looking at Shi Xiong's strong body that exerts tremendous pressure on people, Shi Xiong realized that this guy in front of him not only got the guidance of the sun god, but he himself was also a powerful and unparalleled warriors. If he really wants power, his own combat power coupled with the full support of the Cabra priest, I am afraid that even if he wants the position of tribal leader, he has to obediently give it to him. Li Lei nodded silently. Shi Xiong stroked his chest with both hands and saluted, then turned and walked away. Kuema and Hard Bones are both injured. Although it is not a serious injury, it still needs to be recuperated for these 2 days, so Shi Xiong arranged for the old Wood family to take care of the big one and the small 2 cows. Although the little calf does not have a nose ring, the cow is there and the little calf can't run. Wait until this little calf is a little bigger, and then put a nose ring on it. and you will have better control in the future. Regarding Shi Xiong's arrangement, no one would dare not listen to orders. The guy who provoked Lord Guardian in the morning has been taken care of by Lord Guardian, even if they have more than a dozen soldiers. Didn't you see the soldiers who followed but didn't make a move? All of them were as scared as the pheasants stared at by the eagle god. Therefore, Shi Xiong turned around and left here after finishing the arrangement. Hong Yun followed and walked to Shi Xiong's room. Hong Yun praised with satisfaction, "Dali Xiong, you did a good job today, quite good." Shi Xiong looked at this woman who had just become the most respected Kabru sacrificial woman in the tribe, smiled slightly and shook her head and said, "This is nothing. I have long seen wolf's tail not pleasing to my eyes." www.wuxiaspad.com. It is also today, just in time for such a good opportunity. I can teach him a lesson, and that fellow will definitely not dare to disrespect you in the future. Doesn't respect me, he doesn't dare to have wolf tail. It's you. I'm worried that the wolf tail will make a hand in the dark. That guy is a vengeful person with a small heart, so you have to be careful. Hee, don't worry. As long as Wolf's Tail Brain is not stupid by me, he will definitely not do anything to me in the future. Because this duel has already warned him, as long as he dares to make a move, I promise to kill him next time. Han Yun nodded. Then what are you going to do next? There are many things to do. But the first thing to do is to wait for the wound on the cow's nose to heal. Then we have to arrange for people to plow the land. There is a saying in the ancient and mysterious East that makes sense, called people make a mistake by one time, and a year by others. This year's winter wheat needs to be planted as soon as possible, otherwise the harvest next year will be low. The matter of steel making. Hong Yun hesitated and asked. Don't worry, when the wheat is sowed, the remaining time is enough to make steel. At this point, Shi Xiong patted his head suddenly and made a huge pop, scaring Hong Yun. Jumped. Hee, it's okay, I just remembered that I still have a seeding tool that I haven't made. If that tool is missing, our seeding efficiency will drop a lot. Is it difficult to make this tool? Just say what you need. It's okay. The tools are a little bit complicated, but I can't help them with old wooden ones. With my guidance, he will be able to make that kind of tools soon. Then the speed of our seeding will increase by more than 10 times, and we will plant them out. Winter wheat will grow well too. Chapter 56, Columbine. The seeding tool mentioned by Shi Xiong is naturally the seeding artifact, the car. Speaking of Kuai-Yuan plow, Aquilija, and tube cart, one has to admire the cleverness of the Chinese ancestors. I won't talk about Kuai-Yuan plows and drum carts. This Aquilija cart alone is enough to make Westerners stunned. This is not bragging. The drilling tool of Columbine was invented by the Chinese ancestors during the Warring States period more than 2,000 years ago. After continuous improvement, Columbine developed from the original one-legged Columbine to the two-legged Columbine, and then Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty uniformly promoted the three-legged Columbine, which is a planter that can sow 3 rows of Columbine at one time. Later, even the 5-legged Columbine and even the 7-legged Columbine and 10-legged Columbine were studied. The seeding efficiency is called 1 high. In the Western world, before the 16th century, let alone the Columbine, they did not even have the tools to drill. It was not until the beginning of the 17th century, in 1602, that Europe had the first drill with detailed instructions. It was a drill called Dalkavlina developed. However, this drill is still relatively primitive. The first real drill in Europe appeared in the early 18th century, but this and later types of drills in Europe are expensive and unreliable, and they are still single-line drills. It was not until the mid-19th century that Europe had a sufficient number of solid, high-quality drills. In other words, in this era, let alone North American Indians, even Europeans don't have many drills. As we all know, there are 3 ways of sowing. One is the most primitive and rough sowing, which is the way that Stone Bear saw Hong Yun and they sow corn. This method is the most primitive way of sowing, so that the seeds will survive, so the grain yield is naturally extremely low. The second method of sowing is on demand, This method has been popular in Europe for thousands of years. It was not until the first drilling machine was developed by Europeans in the 17th century, the more advanced method of sowing became popular in Europe. The third kind of nature is drill seeding, which is also a common sowing method in modern agriculture. It is about the middle of the 18th century, which means that even in Europe, the inefficient seed drill is extremely expensive, and few European farmers can afford it, let alone in North America. The soil at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountain is fertile and water resources are abundant. As long as there are efficient farming tools, the grain output here will definitely be several times or even 10 times higher than before. Stone Bear has this confidence, and the source of confidence is the successful taming of quail and plow, columbine, and bison. With these three things, as long as the tribes are not as lazy as the black brothers and sisters in Africa, then the tribe's food production is destined to have a leap in growth. The columbine that Shi Xiong intends to build is the three-legged columbine, which is the most used columbine by the ancestors of China, and it is also the columbine most maintained in the museum in the previous life of the Stone Bear. Like Kwai the provincial museum where Shi Xiong worked in the past has many farm tools from the Song and Ming eras. These farm tools may not be valuable at that time, but after hundreds of years of ups and downs, even those the least valuable agricultural tools of the time are also called cultural relics in museums. As a cultural preservation expert, Shi Xiong inevitably deals with these cultural relics. Wenbao refers to the protection of cultural relics. So Shi Xiong may not understand modern Aquilija, but his understanding of Aquilija in the Song and Ming dynasties is something a proficient can describe. So, pulling the big and one small 2 cows to the door of my house and mobilizing the old wood that the family took care of, there was another job in his hands. With the experience of building a quail and plow last time, now the old wood can understand the 3-dimensional map. Master Guardian, what is this? Old Mutsu asked in surprise. After this morning's duel, coupled with the series of things that Shi Xiong had done before, Old Wood, who has enough life experience, already knew that the guardian in front of him was definitely not an ordinary person. Hold this thick thigh to Old Wood. As far as a family is concerned, there are absolutely no disadvantages. This is called columbine, and it is a very advanced planting tool. With it, our planting efficiency can be greatly improved, and when the crops mature, we can also harvest more grain. One more thing, once these tools are created, the name of your old wood will be passed down through the ages, because even those Vasikas will not make this thing now. The great sun is on top. It has been only a few days in my whole life that I feel that my life is very fulfilling and very happy. The smile on Lao Mutu's face grew stronger. As the chief carpenter of the tribe, he has long been bored with old wood by building houses, making wooden bowls, wooden basins and other things for the tribe. Although the Kwai made under the guidance of Master Guardian 2 days ago has not yet been tested, Lao Muzi firmly believes that it is definitely an amazing work. And now, Master Guardian has come out with a tool that looks more complicated, which is undoubtedly a huge excitement for the old wood. Even Master Guardian said, as long as you can make this kind of tool, you can stay in 1,000 history. Well, although we are just a carpenter, the carpenter who doesn't want to stay in the history is definitely not a good carpenter. We must be a good carpenter. So instead of Shi Xiong's command, after Lao Muta stood at the door and yelled aloud, all the younger generations of Lao Muta ran over www.wuxiasput.com, even feeding the cow. The grass is no longer fed, and the cow flashed innocently with a pair of big cheery eyes. Although the columbine is about the same complexity as the Kwai plow, the craftsmanship required to build the columbine is more rigorous than that of the Kwai plow. After all, there are some very small organs involved in the columbine, such as the lower seed bucket and the leaking seed eye. These parts need to be carefully crafted. And this is the first time to build a car, just to be on the safe side. Old Wood called all his children and grandchildren. After all, there are many people and great power. Old Mutsu and his family are going to discuss how to make this Aquilija, and Shi Xiong can't leave either. Some places require detailed explanations from him. So Shi Xiong sat aside, took out a new pipe from the animal skin bag on his belt, grabbed the old wooden tobacco leaf bag, and started to vomit clouds. The stone bear in the previous life is also a smoker, 1.5 pack a day. After crossing over, he discovered that there are even benefits for smoking here. Ishikawa knows that tobacco leaf itself is a specialty of America. Although South America is the place of origin, tobacco leaf has been grown in North America a long time ago, and the pipe is the earliest invention of the Indians. Those people in the Old World didn't smoke a pipe until Columbus discovered the New World. Although the pipe is good, Shi Xiong, who is used to smoking cigarettes for later generations, still feels a bit uncomfortable. It would be nice if I could get the cigarette out. Well, it seems that there are a lot of cocoa, homonymous, cultivation in North America now, if you get the thing out and sell it to Europe. The stone bear smoking a pipe suddenly burst into laughter like a night owl, scaring the old wood and the whole family. Chapter 57, I need your unconditional cooperation. Although the production process of the Aquilija is a bit complicated, there are stone bears, and the first Aquilija of the Gaoshu tribe and even North America was successfully built at night. Musha is the main assistant of Old Wood, and he still records the process of making the car in detail. It's hard for this child to say. Unlike their compatriots living in Central and South America, North American Indians have developed their own civilization and even hieroglyphs. Even in the 18th century, North American Indians did not develop their own writings. Therefore, if you want to record the process of making Aquilija in detail, the wood planer is a waste of brain cells this day. Including the previous process of steel making and the production of quoit and plow, in order to record these sacred arts, the wood planer even squeezed out a lot of symbols, or words that were not available before. Shi Xiong didn't expect that this wooden planer, which looks like a wooden plane, has a great talent for writing. However, Shi Xiong is temporarily unable to discuss with him about text and civilization, and he does not have this time now. Whether it is the basic text of civilization or other aspects of civilization, it has never been achieved overnight. It takes continuous learning and exploration and long-term accumulation to slowly form the embryonic form of civilization. Stone bears don't have time to take their time. The massacre of North American Indians by the Wasakas in Europe in the future will be a sharp knife selected on his neck. If he does not hurry to run, then this sharp knife will fall, come and chop off his head. Therefore, all the energy of Shi Xiong is now on how to accelerate the development of the Gaoshu tribe and even the Cherokee tribe. Only when he has enough self-protection power can he slowly develop such things as writing and civilization, something more luxurious. Even if it was already time to fall asleep at night, Old Wood still personally invited Leela and Cabru to worship. After seeing the exquisite Columbine car, the two people were amazed, and at the same time they believed that the former fool, the Great Bear, was indeed directed by the Sun God. Otherwise, how could a fool who didn't know anything before develop such a sophisticated car? Coupled with the unthinkable things like quoit and plowing, steel making, and taming bison, everyone can see the extraordinary things about the Great Bear. I'm afraid that the wolf's tail, who was fascinated by envy, jealousy and hatred, didn't think of this. The plowshares refined that day were installed on the curved plow. The tamed bison was used to pull the plow. Together with the curved plow, the bison can plow a large amount of land in a short period of time. The fertility of the land is increased to the limit, and this Columbine is specially used for planting. With it, our planting efficiency can be increased many times, and the crops grown will grow better. So, when these things are combined and then planted with wheat, we will be able to harvest a lot of wheat by the time the strawberry moon arrives next year. After a pause, Shi Xiong looked at Leela, Hong Yun and Lao Mu's family, and said with certainty, when the strawberry moon, June, arrives, the output of wheat will be 5 or even 10 times higher than before! Hong Yun just gave Shi Xiong a positive smile when she heard this. She had heard similar words several times, so she didn't feel so surprised, but these words made Leela almost jumped up in surprise. Guardian, what are you saying is true? With these things, We can really increase our food production several times next year? Shi Xiong gave Li Lei a sure nod. Great, this is really great. Li Lei flushed with excitement, making a fist with his right hand and smashing his left palm, making it impossible to see that he was a seriously injured patient who had not healed. As a tribal leader with more than 300 people, did Li Lei not know the importance of food? When there was no high tree tribe before, the reason why the Cherokee was driven out of the fertile Great Lakes area by the Javas and Iroquois was not because there were too many Cherokees, and then because of hunting. Did the Delaware and the Iroquois conflict? Later, the tribe came to this area and learned farming from their compatriots in the south. The grain produced in the field was combined with the food obtained from hunting. This allowed the Cherokee to gain a firm foothold in this area, and the number of tribesmen also increased, much more than when I lived in the Great Lakes area before. All of this has a direct relationship with the grain produced in the ground. In this era, the number of tribes means the strength of the tribe, and the most direct and fundamental reason for the number of tribes lies in the yield of food in the ground. After all, this is not the Great Plains region of the Midwest, it is a mountainous area, and the number of bison is far less than the Great Plains region. But even in a plain area where the number of bison can never be killed, it is impossible to rely on hunting bison and other prey to fill the stomachs of 50,000 or 60,000 people. Otherwise, the number of powerful Iroquois is not nearly as large as the number of people 200 or 300 years ago. On the other hand, the Cherokees who have started farming, have fed more Cherokees because of the more food in the ground. Now the number of Cherokees is almost the same as the number of Iroquois. The current population limit of the Gaoshu tribe is more than 300 people. No matter how much it is, the output of the tribe will not be enough for everyone to eat. You reading www.whocanshu.com. Therefore, once the population exceeds the warning line, a part of it will inevitably be separated. As the leader of a tribe, who wants to separate his tribe? If there is enough food, the High Tree tribe will surely develop into a super large tribe with more than 1,000 people. By then, coupled with the prestige of Cabru, the High Tree tribe will definitely become one of the top tribes of the entire Cherokee tribe. But in order to achieve all this, the prerequisite is to solve the food problem. As long as all the things the Guardian said can be realized, then the takeoff of the Gaoshu tribe is really just around the corner. Li Lei knows very well that if the large-scale tame of the bison is to give the Gaoshu tribe a sharp weapon, then the large-scale increase in food production is to make a sea needle for the Gaoshu tribe. Guardian, what do you need? Personnel, power, or other personnel you can mobilize at will? Power. Here is the respected Kabul priest. We can agree to give you power second only to the two of us. As for the others, yes, as long as you. Shi Xiong shook his head and waved his hands and said, Chief, I think you made a mistake about what I meant. I don't know if you remember what I told you this morning. If you remember, then I should want it now. What? As he said, Shi Xiong turned his head and looked at Hong Yun again. You both know who I am. As far as my identity is concerned, would I care about those things? I just want to develop this tribe and develop it into a giant pies tribe has developed into a tribe that everyone is willing to surrender. And to achieve this goal, my only requirement now is your unconditional cooperation. Cooperate with me well. Only in this way can I achieve what I just said. All that. Chapter 58, Plowing Artifact. Although it is late autumn, the weather today is very good. The sun hanging in the air expelled the dense fog that filled the valley, and the temperature rose a little. Just on the bank of the little river to the west of the tribe, almost all of the Gaoshu tribe was dispatched. All men, women and children came to the river. Today, they were called by the leader Li Lei to come and watch a historically significant one. Things. The things that Master Guardian made a few days ago made a sensation in the Gaoshu tribe for a while, but then the people of the tribe couldn't understand those things made by Master Guardian. What do those two weird things do? Iron and Steel and the Tame Buffalo tribe knew what was going on, but Qiuanli and Columbine completely stunned them. Today, the leader of Li Lei said that Lord Guardian will experiment with the new curved plow and Columbine in the farmland by the river, and emphasized that this will be an epoch-making experiment, so all the tribesmen in the tribe are required to watch as much as possible. When the people came here, they did not see a Lord Guardian, but the female bison with the nose ring was eating the grass on the ground leisurely, and the cow was standing beside her with bruises on her face. Ma waited for a few people. On the other end of the field, more than a dozen strong men, holding heavy stone spades, bone sticks and other things in their hands, stood there coldly, seeming to be waiting, under the leadership of the same black-faced wolf tail. What? As for the wolf's tail, the clansmen don't have much interest anymore. The duel that day showed them the strength of the wolf's tail. Now almost all the people of the tribe are attracted by the docile female bison. That really is a bison. Why does it look so obedient? Nonsense. Of course it was the bison that Master Guardian tamed. When we caught this bison, my second kid also followed. I didn't expect that a small iron ring could tame a bison. Yeah, Master Guardian is really amazing. I heard from our family Moma cow. Master Guardian once said something like water point tofu, one thing drops one thing. I can't figure it out. My daughter didn't understand what it meant. But Master Guardian said, no matter how strong the beast in this world is, it has weaknesses. As long as we grasp the weakness, we can surrender it. Just like this bison. Yes, Master Guardian is really amazing. How can he think of so many things? Hush, I have a secret here. You can't tell anyone. I heard that our guardian Sama used to be a fool, but after that time their hairy cow tribe was attacked by the Chikashas and was seriously injured. Lord got the guidance of the Great Sun in his coma, and the injuries on his body were cured by the Great Sun God. This is true? Doesn't it mean that Lord Guardian is the messenger of God? Hush, you can't talk nonsense about this. Let the Kabul priest hear it, and you will be punished. Buzzing comments filled the fields. Even if the farmland looks more like a wasteland, but it is indeed a field where food is grown in the tribe. When the leader of Lilai, the Kabul priest, and the guardian Great Bear came from a distance, the people's comments were much quieter, and the wild fox standing beside the wolf's tail burst into hatred. Shi Xiong naturally didn't see those hostile eyes. Even if he saw it, he didn't care. Does an adult Kodiak bear still count the gazes of a few wild dogs? Standing on the big rock where the stone bear once squatted, Lilei said loudly, my tribe, to gather everyone together today is mainly to let everyone witness the new type developed by our Master Guardian for the tribe, farming tools. Master Guardian said that as long as we use this farming tool to grow food, our food will be doubled when we harvest next year. At that time, the food produced in the fields alone will be enough for our tribe to eat. That's it. Lilei's words caused all the tribe members to exclaim. Although the Gaoshu tribe is still a semi-agricultural and semi-safari ethnic group, the tribe members are already used to getting food from the ground. If the grain output can really double next year, doesn't it mean that there will be no time to go hungry in the future? This is really a great happy event. The sky and the earth are big, and the belly is the biggest. This is a universal truth. As long as the tribe can be full, the tribe will definitely support you. If a red deer can lead the people of the tribe to eat and drink, then the tribe does not mind letting this red deer be the leader. This is the truth. All the good things in this world are not as important as having a full belly. And some savvy clansmen also heard the name Lilei called the Guardian, and it has changed from the former Guardian to the current honorific name Guardian Lord. What does this show? Obviously, this was because the leader also acknowledged the actions of Lord Guardian, and was completely moved by the actions of Lord Guardian. However, there are still some people in our tribe who don't seem to approve of these things done by Master Guardian, so today I intend to take this opportunity to prove Master Guardian is correct. You can chew.com. Lilei's voice is not loud, but all the people can hear it. Is there anyone who doesn't recognize the Guardian? Is it the Wolftail group? These guys. Didn't the Guardian Lord convince them that day? Well, how do I feel that the Wolf's Tail is ashamed today? Lilei's voice continued to sound. In view of the current situation, I'm going to have a competition. Wolf's Tail leads 9 people to plow this farmland with the tools in their hands. There is only one master guardian. The guardian will lead the cow to take the farm tools he developed and the wolf tail to compete with them. In the end, we will see who has plowed more land within the specified time, then who is the winner. The discussion sounded again. Is this unfair? There are 10 people in Wolf Tail, and the guardian only has 1 person. How could the guardian be better than Wolf Tail? This is unfair. Yes, even if the guardian has a tamed cow as a helper, there are 10 people on the Wolf Tail. Haha, what are you guys afraid of? Didn't you watch the duel last morning? At that time there were more people in Wolf's Tail than now. Didn't you still get a severe beating by Master Guardian? Don't worry, I don't think Wolf's Tail is better than Master Guardian. The surrounding discussion sounded continuously into Shi Xiong's ears. Shi Xiong faintly clicked, and said in his heart, how can it be possible to fight the Kuai-Yuan plow with the backward primitive tools they took with the Wolf Tail? Don't say 10 individuals, even if there are 50 more people, they are no better than the combination of my old bull plus Kuai-Yuan plow. Is it really a plowing artifact for nothing? Chapter 59, Teach the Old Cow. The fact that the farmland is plowed before planting can greatly increase food production. In the past few days, Hong Yun has arranged for people to spread among the tribes at the request of Shi Xiong. Most people in the tribe now know about this. It's just that they still don't understand why it takes so much effort to plow the land before planting. But since this matter was said by the Kabru priest, then it must be correct. These tribesmen in the tribe have all grown up listening to the legends of the Kabul priests. In their minds, the words of the Kabul priests represent the will of the gods, and they have never been wrong. So, even if it takes a lot of effort, this farmland has to be plowed. It's just that there is no such thing as plowing in the tribe before, so even if the wolf tail wants to fight against the stone bear, they can only use extremely simple stone shovel and bone sticks, which are not suitable for plowing at all. Come plowing. In this regard, Shi Xiong gave Wolf Tail and the others only one comment: silly. Let alone these simple tools, even later generations holding shovel and made of steel, the plowing speed is not as fast as the ox-pull plow. You guys come out with stone shovel and bone stick, are you kidding me? Ishikama confidently led the cow, and then hung the yoke with the rope on the cow's shoulder, and over there, the wolf's tail had already begun to dry. How about putting you 200 yards first? Shi Xiong shook his head slightly, carefully hung the yoke, and then leaned on the plow tip of the Kuai-Yuan plow, shouting drive in his mouth. As a result, something embarrassing happened. That old man the bull didn't even move, and his 2 big watery eyes looked at the stone bear, looking extremely innocent. Damn, I'm busy with other things, and forgot to teach this cow the easiest command to control. Shi Xiong patted his forehead helplessly, really his sister's embarrassment. Although this cow looks very obedient now, in fact, this cow doesn't understand commands to control it at all. Didn't learn to control commands through the control of the bullnose ring. How does this old bull know what your guardian sir is shouting? Those big watery bull's eyes waited for the stone bear, as if saying, are you calling my old lady to eat grass? But where's the grass? Where's the old lady's grass? In desperation, Stone Bear had to find a long branch, and then he held the plow with one hand, and the other hand held the branch and pointed it at the old cow's ass. Isn't it true that Lao Tzu engages in this kind of idiot? As a result, the branch was pulled down, and the old gnu suddenly let out a high-pitched moo. As soon as his head lowered, Sayazi ran forward. Damn, I am. A series of dirty mouths popped out of the messy stone bear's mouth. Does this old man want to rebel? The clansmen onlookers laughed, and the little guys have even begun to learn that the guardian uses branches to drive away bulls. This made Tai Shan collapse in front of the guardian, who was unswervingly in front of him, immediately felt his old face flushed. This sister's embarrassment is big. Fortunately, the rein with the bull's nose ring was at hand. Shi Xiong grabbed the rein, but with a slight effort, the old bull stopped slowly and grinned. Fortunately, the power of the bull nose ring on the old cow is still infinite. But the old cow stood still, but can't let him stand just like that, right? As soon as the imaginary mouth shouted drive, the old cow began to walk forward slowly, and then when he shouted drive, the scene of the old cow standing still seemed to be temporarily impossible. So Shi Xiong's eyes turned, and he turned his head and said to the hard bone who was not far away, "Get me some hay, and by the way, find a rope." Bone ran out, and in a short while, he ran back with a bunch of hay and a rope. While looking for grass with his hard bones, Shi Xiong broke a longer branch and tied it to a curved plow. The front end protruded a lot, just about a meter away in front of the nose of the cow. After Hard Bones picked up the grass, the stone bear pulled a lot, and then tied it with a rope to the branch that protruded. Sure enough, the old cow saw that there was grass to eat in front of him, so he stepped forward without having to greet the stone bear. It's just such a delay. Wolftail and a group of people have dug a shallow trench more than 10 meters long. After all, there are 10 of them, and each of them has dug 10 meters from 1 meter. Shi Xiong ignored the other side. Seeing the old cow walk forward, Shi Xiong slightly pressed the back end of the branch, and the front end of the tethered branch immediately rose up. At the same time, he yelled, "Utilda! This cow is a little dumbfounded. Where's my old lady's grass? And what do you call the two-legged monster behind? Who do you control?" There was no grass ahead, so the cow naturally stopped. Then Shi Xiong yelled, "Drive Tilda!" again. When he saw that the old cow was still motionless, he put the grass down, and the old cow really walked forward again. If the old cow does not listen to the greeting, then there is no grass to eat. Of course, if the old cow does it right, then there is a reward, a handful of grass. The group of people next to them all watched with gusto, and they also saw it. www.wuxiaspot.com. It seems that the guardian is training the cow. At the beginning, the grass hanging in front of me was there for a while and not for a while, which made the old cow somewhat angry. But whenever it just wants to take a break, the bullnose ring on its nose will control its emotions very well. After doing this more than 10 times, the old man finally understood one thing: as long as the two-legged monster behind shouted drive, as long as he walked forward, there would be grass in front of him. Once you call you, as long as you stop, there will also be grass eating. So, when the stone bear shouted drive again, he didn't need to put down the grass, and the old cow immediately moved forward with a steady and slow speed, very docilely. This step doesn't matter. Shi Xiong pressed the plow down, and the whole plow was submerged in the soil. If a person pulls the plow, it will be very heavy, but this old cow is 1,500 jin, huge and powerful. Even if the plow is submerged into the soil as deep as more than 10 centimeters, but this kind of for this old bull, resistance is really sprinkling water. Then all the clansmen saw this scene. The old cow walked along a straight line slowly and contentedly. Behind the old cow, the guardian master easily controlled the curved plow. The plow of the Kuai-Yuan plow, which went deep into the soil, easily broke through the hard soil under the great traction force, and soon left a deep trench behind the guardian, and the plowed soil was covered, automatically turned to the sides, and then fell into the ditch again. At the beginning, it was a delay in training the old cow, which caused the wolf-tailed people to go out a lot, but when the old cow got up, it was only a short time, and Master Guardian quickly surpassed the plowing speed, the speed of the 10 people over there. Chapter 60, Guide. Seeing the wolf's tail and their slower and slower speed not far away, Shi Xiong's disdain increased. "Are you kidding me? You don't even have a shovel or in your hand, so you dare to cultivate the land faster than the old cow with the curved plow, who gives you so much confidence?" The fault is that later generations of farming machinery such as rotary tillers, otherwise there is absolutely nothing in this era that can cultivate the land faster than the combination of cattle plus curved plow. Even if you are a dozen strong men, it's no better than this simple combination of one cow and one plow. This is proved by the ancestors of China in more than 2,000 years. You also want to challenge this impossibility with your wolf tail. It's not that a mouse licks a cat, it's death. The resistance of the plowshare of the Kuai-Yuan plow into the ground may be great for a person, but for a bison weighing more than 1,500 kilograms, it is nothing at all. Under the temptation of the grass in front of him, This bison that had just been tamed took a leisurely pace and walked forward unhurriedly. Although the speed is not fast, it is extremely stable. When the plow crossed the ground, a slip of plowed land was left behind. The reason why the Kuai-Yuan plow can replace the previous straight plow and long plow is because the Kuai-Yuan plow has changed the straight and long shafts to curved and short shafts, and installed freely rotating plow discs at the head of the shaft, which not only makes the frame become smaller and lighter, and it is convenient to turn around and turn, operate flexibly, and save manpower in livestock. So whenever he gets to the ground, the stone bear just pulls the reins lightly, and the old cow will turn around obediently, and then continue to chase the grass that he will almost never eat. Just like that, without even a meal, the stone bear's land was completely plowed, while the land on the wolf-tail side was not even plowed for 1/10. Just like that, wolf-tail and their 10 tired wild dogs are almost the same. They work like slow motion. As things have developed to the present, there is no need for this kind of competition to go on. Although the clansmen of the Gaoshu tribe had never plowed the land before, now that the 10 strong men of the wolf-tail and their 10 strong men were exhausted into such a dog-like form, they immediately understood how laborious it is to plow the land. Similarly, the obvious contrast also made the people of the Gaoshu tribe fully understand one thing, and that is that such a labor-intensive thing can be made so simple. Is nothing more than a cow and a curved plow. Cows, there are some in the wilderness or bison mountains outside, and Master Guardian clearly demonstrates that tame bison is actually not a difficult task. As long as you put that kind of bull nose ring on the bison's nose, even the irritable bison will have to obedient. As for Kuai-Yuan, it seems a bit complicated, but isn't there an old wooden family in the tribe? And if there are 10 cows and 10 curved plows in the tribe, all the land in the tribe can be plowed in just a few days. According to the preaching of the Kabru sacrifice, as long as the land is plowed and then planted, the yield of crops in the coming year will increase several times. What is this concept? Even the dumbest guy in the tribe can figure out what this means. The people of the tribe will not be hungry anymore. This is the most intuitive answer. Lile and Hong Yun, the high-ranking members of these tribes, after seeing this remarkable gap, their faces were also happy. Although Wolf's Tail has once again swept the ground with its prestige, compared to how much food the tribe will have in the future, how much can its face and prestige be worth? As a result, the tribes who originally gathered together to watch are like mungben flies thrown into the pit of the aqua toilet in summer. After coaxing them, they scattered cleanly. They can't wait to quickly own their own, tame the bison and the curly plow. The farmland in the tribe is not cultivated by the tribesmen together, but by each family. The current method of curly plow and taming bison produced by Master Guardian is so efficient. If you can obtain this method as soon as possible, will you still worry about the food for the coming year? Although the North American Indians are very backward and even a little ignorant, there is a reason. The North American Indians themselves are not stupid. On the contrary, they are very smart, but their vision and the environment in which they live restrict their development. As long as they have a good guide, then the energy that these Indians burst out is still very powerful. Shi Xiong now acts as such a guide. As long as these tribesmen see enough benefits, then he doesn't need to bother to promote the follow-up things at all. The tribesmen will spontaneously develop things such as how to plow and grow grain. The facts are exactly the same. This kind of performance of the people is a good reflection of Shi Xiong's previous expectations. Therefore, the few fishing nets in the tribe immediately became popular products. This thing is an indispensable weapon for catching bison. www.wuxiaspot.com. What should I do if there are not enough fishing nets? Then make up. Therefore, almost every family in the tribe has set up shelves at their doorsteps, on which are hung fishing nets made of hemp rope or brown rope. As for Kuai-Yuan, at present, in the tribe, apart from the guardian, only the Old Wood family can do it. Therefore, the Old Woods family has a lot of game food these days. It seems to be offering. Bribery is also human instinct. Lao Muzu and his family are now the most sought after in the tribe, but there are only 5 La Muzui and his family who can make Kuai-Yuan plows. How can they be arranged? This is simple. Give things away. Whoever gives a lot of things, and whoever likes Lao Mu's family give things, then they will definitely build a Kuai-Yuan plow for someone first. The Gaoshu tribe, which was originally quite peaceful and stable, has become a little smoky because of the Kuai-Yuan plow. There is no way, there is really no way. Where there is demand, there is a market. This is the unchanging principle through the ages. As for Lord Guardian, no one dared to disturb him. After all, Lord Guardian does great things. How can I build a Kuai-Yuan plow for you? Yes, in the plowing competition, with a cow plus a Kuai-Yuan plow, he completely defeated the Guardian, who is a mature man. At this time, I really didn't have the mood to build a Kuai-Yuan plow. He is now preparing to use the big pit dug the previous 2 days for coking. Since the decision to make steel is necessary, coke and earth blast furnaces are absolutely indispensable. Coke needs to be smelted, and earth blast furnaces need refractory bricks. The coking and firing of refractory bricks can be done together, so after Shi Xiong has completed the Kuai-Yuan plow in the Columbine, he is ready to start coking and firing the refractory bricks. In the future, steel making will be necessary, so it is better to finish the preparatory work before steel making. Chapter 61, Earth Kiln Coking. In the history of iron smelting, coke, iron ore, and limestone were listed as the 3 major raw materials for iron smelting. The West, which opened the history of modern iron making, believes that coke, like steam engines, iron and steel, is one of the 4 main factors that contributed to the accelerated development of the first industrial revolution. The position of coke in the history of iron smelting is unshakable. In later generations, modern iron smelting was marked by the construction of large blast furnaces. The use of large blast furnaces to smelt iron must be based on the realization of mechanized coking and steam blast technology as a prerequisite. Although Shi Xiong knows how to make coking and also knows what a blower is, according to his current conditions, he can never make a mechanized coking and steam blower. Therefore, Shi Xiong can only use the most primitive earth method for coking and wooden bellows as the blowing equipment. These things are all learned when working in museums in previous lives, and they are all the knowledge that the ancestors of China have mastered thousands of years ago. Although the history of iron smelting in China predates the West, modern iron smelting originated in the Western United Kingdom, and mechanized coking also originated in the United Kingdom. In the UK in the 7th century, the capitalist economy developed rapidly, which greatly stimulated the demand for steel, but a huge obstacle plagued the development of steel in the UK, that is, the shortage of iron smelting fuel. In that era, whether it was China or foreign countries, it was a general consensus between the East and the West to use charcoal as fuel to smelt iron. But long-term charcoal smelting has resulted in a large number of trees being cut down and vegetation destroyed. Iron smelting needs to be developed, and the heat and temperature generated by the burning of charcoal are not enough. Therefore, in the 17th century, an urgent problem was development of new fuels. At that time, some people used coal instead of charcoal, but the sulfur contained in the coal would cause the hot brittleness of pig iron, making it impossible to forge it into shape. Later, someone used coke instead of charcoal and finally succeeded, but this success took more than 80 years. The man who solved the coke problem for Britain was called Abraham Darby. Mr. Darby was born in 1678. In his early years, he worked as an apprentice in a maltose factory in Birmingham. After his apprenticeship expired in 1699, he moved to Bristol, where he started a company with others to make household copper pots. Later, due to the high cost of copper, Darby decided to try to cast the pot with iron and succeeded, and also applied for a patent. The cast iron pots used in the Gaoshu tribe are most likely produced by Mr. Darby's company. The cast iron pot has brought a huge profit to Mr. Darby, but again, a large amount of pig iron is needed to produce a large amount of cast iron pot. So Darby founded his own iron factory and conducted experiments on coking iron. In the experiment, Darby found that coke is not as easy to burn as charcoal. It is necessary to improve the blast facilities and adjust the furnace structure to obtain more sufficient wind power so that the coke can be fully burned. Therefore, he improved the inner diameter of the blast furnace to adapt it to coke iron making, and installed a new blasting facility for the blast furnace. The improved blast furnace successfully used coke for iron making in 1709. The coke iron making was successful, but the hydraulic blast of a water turbine was used. This kind of wind is only suitable for small blast furnaces. For large blast furnaces, the wind generated by hydraulic blast is too small. This problem was not solved until 1776. In that year, the steam engine replaced the hydraulic blast in the blast furnace ironmaking. At this point, the ironmaking industry not only got rid of its dependence on wood, but also got rid of its dependence on water power, thus obtaining sufficient room for development. However, the ironmaking at this time is not yet the realization of modern ironmaking. The advent of this process still needs to wait until 1904. In other words, now including the most developed Britain in the world, iron smelting only uses earthen blast furnaces. It is equivalent to the kind of earth blast furnace used in China's large-scale smelting of steel after the founding of the People's Republic of China. No matter what blast furnace is used to smelt iron, it is inseparable from coke. But if you want to make coking, under the current situation, you can only use the earth coke oven to make coking. Although the big pit that the stone bears had dug out by the tribe can also be used for coking, the big pit is not a clay coke oven, but it is enough for coking and burning refractory bricks. Ishikama intends to wait for the coal in this pit to be smelted into coke and fired enough refractory bricks before starting to build a new earth coke oven. Earth coke oven, also called earth kiln, is an invention of the Chinese people. An earth kiln can't be built by just digging a large pit. It takes many processes to build an earth kiln that can fully coke. Like this big pit that has not been dug out for a long time, put 10,000 caddies of coal in it, and it would be pretty good to be able to produce 3,000 caddies of qualified coke. Had it not been for the simultaneous firing of refractory bricks, Shi Xiong would not have adopted such a backward coking process. In the past, Shi Xiong once saw many coking earth kilns built in the early 20th century in the northeast. Although these coking earth kilns look very backward, the actual coking efficiency is still good. Almost all of these coke-making earth kilns are open-air earth kilns. This kind of earth kiln first digs an earth pit with a depth of more than 1 meter and a diameter of 7 or 8 meters in the ground, adding the height of the building. www.wuxiasput.com. The height of the earth kiln can almost exceed 2.5 meters. The flue is a key procedure for building a kiln, and 2 layers of flue must be built. The first layer of flue is built with lump coal in the center of the kiln, and coal is packed around the flue. These coals are all pulverized coal. When it is installed to a certain height, step on the coal and build the second layer of flue. The second layer flue is much more complicated than the first layer flue. This layer of flue also has a center. Around the center, 16 or 18 flat flues with a width of 60 to 70 centimeters and a height of 20 centimeters are built around the center, and each flue is connected to the center. Then add coal for the second time, covering all flues with pulverized coal to a thickness of half a meter. Started to ignite at this time, ignite the easily combustible wood chips and throw them into the central flue and fall to the bottom flue. The coal blocks burn and the pulverized coal burns. When burning to the central flue of the second floor, throw in wood chips to support the combustion. Then it was the third time to add coal, still pulverized coal, almost 70 to 80 centimeters thick. When burning, the central flue will collapse, and the flame will spit out from the small flue to the outside. As it burns, it will show through to the outside. When the fire is here, the coking people surround the kiln with stones or brick fragments. When the flame penetrates the bricks and the flame has blue smoke, it is a sign of scorching. At this time, the hole needs to be plugged immediately and then covered with sand. After the sand is covered, start to spray water to cool down, wait for it to cool down, take it out, and complete the coking process. This kind of earth kiln requires more than 30 people to make coke in one kiln. 2 kiln coke can be made in one day. and one kiln can produce almost 50 tons of coke. Therefore, the coking efficiency of this kind of earth kiln is actually very good. Shi Xiong intends to use this earth kiln to make coking in the future, but now, he needs to first smelt the coal in the big pit into coke, and at the same time burn the refractory bricks. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, Coke out of the oven. The coal and wood have been put in the big pit, and the top is sealed with mud in accordance with the instructions of the stone bear. Only a flashing eye with a diameter of about 40 centimeters is left in the middle. The wood in the big pit will be ignited by this flashing eye, and then the coking will begin. The fire blazed quickly. Because of the chimney effect, the flames rose up to a height of more than 2 meters. Thick smoke also emerged one after another, and the people onlookers were all taken aback by the scene in front of them. Actually, don't look at the fire right now. But the coal inside hasn't even ignited. When the flames have completely fallen and the flame in the eye of the fire is reddish-orange, the coal inside has already started to burn, and then it is time to seal the eye of the fire with mud. At that time, the burning coal will generate a high temperature of about 1000 degrees, and when the pilot eye is closed, the coal will change from a burning state to a dry distillation state due to lack of oxygen. This is the entire process of coking. The brick house used to fire refractory bricks next to the big pit has a flue leading to the middle of the stone house. The waste heat generated by coking will reach the stone house along this flue, which will lead to the stone house. The slabs of refractory bricks that have been dried in the shade are completely burned. This process will continue for a whole day. In fact, even Shi Xiong himself was not sure about making coking for the first time today. It's like the first steel making process. Although Shi Xiong has seen the coking process and steps, this real coking is really the first time that a big girl went to a sedan chair. But fortunately, the coking process this time is generally quite smooth. After the fire was extinguished and the water was cooled down, although I still don't know how the coke inside was made, the refractory bricks in the stone house burned very well. Although the mud in the big pit has been poured with a lot of water to cool it down, the internal temperature is still extremely high. For safety reasons, Shi Xiong decided to open the mud seal overnight, and then went down to select coke. In the evening, after having a dinner of beef stew with white water and salt, Shi Xiong fell asleep with endless thoughts about the food in his previous life. Not to mention, since this era, there is almost nothing here, that is, the kind of traffic basically relies on walking, communication basically relies on roaring, public security basically relies on dogs, heating basically relies on shaking, and entertainment is basically absent, so it basically relies on hands. Shi Xiong still feels that his life is quite fulfilling in the 6 basic principles of the era. Even if there is no food, there is still a pipe after all. Even if you don't have a wife, you still have hands. The arrangements are full every day, as if there are endless things to do. This kind of days with a slight lack of regret is a bit boring for Shi Xiong, but when he remembers that he is now starting to paint slowly on the vast land of the North American continent, which is close to white paper, it gives him an unprecedented fulfillment. Since, even the thoughts of his parents and relatives in his previous life have become much weaker. Early the next morning, Shi Xiong got up and exercised for a long time as usual. The body is the capital of the revolution. Shi Xiong deeply agrees with this statement. In previous life dreams, I wanted to train a body of tendons, but I never did it. Since the son gave himself such a great body in this life, he must protect it and say nothing to abuse this body. After drinking 3 bowls of corn dumpling pumpkin porridge, Shi Xiong walked out of the house and came to the big pit where the coking was done yesterday. Around this, hundreds of clansmen have been surrounded, and clansmen are coming in continuously. Everyone wants to know what the guardian Sama has been busy for so many days, digging holes and burning fires. What is it? Smashed through the dried mud, standing on the edge of the pit could not feel the heat inside, and Shi Xiong took the lead to jump out of the pit. The pit is not deep and not too big. At this time, it is covered with black coke, unburned coal, and half coal and half coke. After all, this kind of pit is not an earth kiln specially used for coking, so coal is not fully burned in it, which results in almost half of the coal not being made into coke. Shi Xiong and several tribesmen picked in the pit, and soon picked out a lot of refined coke. With the Shi Xiong demonstration, the people of the tribe also know what coke looks like. In fact, coke and coal are relatively easy to distinguish, so in the middle of the morning, all the coke in the big pit was basically selected. Shi Xiong estimated that it was about 3,000 kilograms, which was about the same as his previous estimate. If it is a special earthen kiln, and the coal is broken into pieces, then I dare not say that it will reach a ratio of 1.35 to 1, but 1.5 to 1 is not a problem. In other words, if you put in 10,000 caddies of coal, you can at least produce 6,000 caddies of coke. But this is the first time to make coking, and the earth kiln is not used. It is also very good to be able to use this 10,000 caddies of coal to produce 3,000 caddies of coke. After all, the remaining unburned coal and half of the burned coal can still be used for coking, or used to make fires for heating and cooking. These remaining things cannot be wasted. 3,000 kilograms of coke seems to be a lot, which is equivalent to 1.5 ton of coke. If the coke ratio of later generations of iron smelting also uses blast furnaces is about 0.33 to 1, that is, 330 kilograms of coke is required to smelt 1 ton of pig iron. 1,000 kilograms of coke can smelt about 5 tons of pig iron. In the future iron smelting industry, it takes about 1.5 to 1.6 tons of iron ore to smelt 1 ton of pig iron. I'm reading www.ukenshu.com. These 3,000 kilograms of coke can smelt about 8 tons of iron ore. If the average density of hematite is 4, 8 tons of iron ore is really not a big deal, and the earth blast furnace is a little bigger than it is enough to hold a furnace. Therefore, we have to hurry up to build a special coke-making earth kiln to produce more coke in order to be able to make a large amount of steel. But this time, the coking process gave Shi Xiong and the people involved in the coking process a lot of experience, which is the most precious thing. With this coking base, the people must have learned a lot. These experiences will play a huge role in the future coking process, which is difficult to measure with food. The next step is to hurry up and use these refined coke to make steel. After all, the season waits for no one. If you want to plant the winter wheat quickly, you have to build a batch of quayu and plows and columbine, all of which require a certain amount of steel. After all, it's easy to catch the bison, and the wooden parts of the columbine plow and the columbine are easy to say, except that the columbine, like the ox nose ring, the columbine plowshare, and the columbine are all made of steel. 3,000 caddies of coke can make a lot of steel. So Shi Xiong quickly organized people to build a blast furnace. This kind of earthen blast furnace has no technical content. When China made large-scale steel smelting, such earthen blast furnaces could be seen everywhere in China. At that time, the Chinese people did not have any refractory bricks when they built the earth blast furnace. They were all built directly with mud mixed with bricks. Now Shi Xiong still has refractory bricks in his hands, so even if he hasn't built the earth blast furnace, he is still very sure. P.S. Boat to thank the Villa Aquaman 500 for the reward. Chapter 63, Earth Blast Furnace. It is really impossible to say whether it was right or wrong in the big, steel and steel movement of China. From the perspective of future generations, the movement that swept across the country was wrong. It was a waste of money for the people and severely damaged the fragile industrial foundation at that time. But from the perspective of the time, this matter was not wrong. Otherwise it would not have formed such a nationwide steel-making situation. Of course, that matter was too far away from Shi Xiong, and he was unwilling to judge whether it was right or wrong, and he said he didn't have the right to judge it. He can only say that it was an inappropriate move made by the people from the top to the ordinary people because they did not fully realize their technological level. But thanks to that big steel-making movement, Shi Xiong has seen earthen blast furnaces left over in some remote mountain villages in the province. At that time, a retired old leader of the museum once said that these leftover earth blast furnaces had witnessed the changes of an era and were the condensation of the wisdom of the people at that time. There is nothing wrong with earth blast furnaces, so they should not be destroyed by the wind and sun. It was precisely with the instructions of this old leader that Shi Xiong, who had just joined the work for a short time, followed his master to maintain and repair the earthen blast furnaces, and figured out the structure of these earthen blast furnaces. In fact, even the modern iron-making blast furnaces of later generations, their structural principles are not so complicated, and they are even worse than the earth kilns for coking. Although these earthen blast furnaces were built with earthen methods, the principle and structure are no different from modern iron-making blast furnaces. It is a nearly cylindrical cylinder with a diameter of about 2.5 meters and a height of more than 5 meters, with stones or red bricks mixed with soil on the outside. It becomes thinner as it goes up, and is narrowed and capped at the top of the furnace throat, and then reserve the gas outlet and feed inlet. The inside of the furnace is pasted with a thick layer of refractory clay. Some soil blast furnaces do not have refractory clay, so they simply use mud paste. The main purpose is to prevent high temperatures. In the position of the joint between the hearth and the hearth, there are reserved oblique upward air inlets. The wind produced by the wind box or blower will be injected into the hearth from these inlets to accelerate the combustion of coke in the blast furnace. At the bottom of the hearth of the blast furnace, there are two discharge ports on the top and bottom. The bottom one at one end is dedicated for tapping molten iron, and the slightly higher part at the other end is dedicated for tapping slag. Slag mouth. When making iron, coke, iron ore, and limestone are placed in the hearth according to a certain proportion, and then ignited. The air box or blower is used to continuously blow air into the hearth. As the furnace temperature continues to increase, the iron, the ore and limestone will melt into molten iron containing waste residue. Because the density of molten iron is extremely high, it can exceed 7, and the density is much greater than those of waste slag, so when molten iron is produced, the waste produced by iron making floats on the molten iron. This creates a situation where the molten iron is on the bottom and the waste is on the top. Therefore, the tap hole is at the bottom, and the tap hole is one piece higher than the tap hole. In this way, the waste produced by iron making will flow out from the outlet, and the pure molten iron will flow out from the lowest tap hole. This kind of earthen blast furnace is a bell-type blast furnace. It is a kind of earth blast furnace whose coke consumption rate is far lower than that of cupola blast furnaces, and its iron tapping rate is also much higher than that of cupola blast furnaces. When iron and steel was smelted, some large-scale iron smelting sites mostly used this kind of earthen blast furnace. This thing is not difficult for Shi Xiong to be sincere, just like a gourd painting. Although the earth blast furnace built in this way is extremely primitive, it is the most advanced in this era. Even in Europe, there is no such wood blast furnace. Of course, given the current strength of the Gaoshu tribe, there is no need to build such a large earth blast furnace. Although in the division of blast furnaces, those with less than 100 cubic meters are even small blast furnaces, but those small blast furnaces are too large for the current Gaoshu tribe. So Shi Xiong plans to build an earthen furnace that is smaller than the small blast furnace. After all, building too big is a waste. The blast furnace is not difficult for the people of the Gaoshu tribe, even if they have never done this kind of muddy work before, but this thing is really not difficult. Plus they used to build a stone house in order to make refractory bricks, so it's nothing to set up a small blast furnace under Shi Xiong's guidance this time. While building the blast furnace, Shi Xiong used the unburned coal left over from the coking process. The iron ore blocks dug out from the Bison Mountain are relatively large, and the smelting efficiency is too low when directly put into the blast furnace, so it must be crushed. In the High Tree tribe, which has no crushing machinery or even hammers, the best way to crush these large pieces of iron ore is the primitive method of burning it first and then pouring cold water. Is to put the iron ore into the burning coal to heat it. When the iron ore is very hot, it is pulled out with a stone rod, and then watered upward. Under the heat expansion and cold contraction, the iron ore will fragment by itself. Before the invention of medicine, almost all rocks were mined in this primitive way in both the West and the East. While building the blast furnace and crushing iron ore, the other tribes were not idle. www.wuxiaspot.com. Some tribes, mainly women, continued to open up wasteland and plow the land under the leadership of sheeptail flowers, while another group of tribes under the leadership of Zhao and Jiao Niu, he began to frequently enter the Bison Mountain and the wilderness to catch bison. Wolf's tail failed twice in the hands of the stone bear, each time with a gray-headed face, so his prestige in the tribe has been greatly reduced, and he is no longer suitable for leading the tribe's warriors in battle or hunting. Because the purpose is not to kill the bison, and the method of ambushing to catch the bison, the capture of the bison went very smoothly. Usually there are more than 20 people divided into two groups. After seeing the lonely bison, one group began to sneak into the vicinity to set up ambushes. After the setup was completed, the other group began to ride horses and brag horns, the horn to frighten these bison. Waiting for the lonely bison to plunge into the ambushing circle, the oncoming fishing nets will make these vigorous bison empty and useless. When these fighters are good, they can even catch 3 bisons a day. Even when they are bad luck, they can catch 1 bison at least a day. In the 4 short days from the construction of the earth blast furnace to the completion of the earth blast furnace, there have been 8 more bisons in the tribe, of which 6 are cows and 2 bulls. I have to say that bulls are really more difficult to deal with than cows. When capturing these 2 bulls, 2 warriors in the tribe almost died under the horns. In order to get the 8 new bison down as quickly as possible, Shi Xiong took down another pair of tongs and made 8 bull-nose rings. With the help of the tribe, he mounted these bison one by one, a bull-nose ring. Not to mention, after the training of these 9 bisons, Shi Xiong is now a master at putting on the nose ring. Chapter 64, Furnace. The development of the tribe has gradually been on the right track, which makes Shi Xiong's mood more and more happy. Although everything is not even the pointy corners of the little lotus, it can be regarded as arousing the cohesion of the tribesmen. This is the foundation of all careers. North American Indians are a race that likes infighting, so even if North American Indians have lived on the vast continent of North America for tens of thousands of years, they have never produced a complete regime. This is also the fundamental reason why European whites finally killed the North American Indians, who had an overwhelming number of people, and almost became extinct. To put it bluntly, North American Indians lack a kind of cohesion. If these 2 million Indians can be huddled together, why would those European whites kill the Indians with hundreds of thousands of strong fighters? Even if these Indian fighters don't have heat weapons, even guerrillas can make those European whites miserable. At that time, Grandpa Mao was able to lead the martyrs with broadswords and millet plus rifles to defeat the little devil who owns aircraft, cannon, and machine gun. Why? Isn't it a high degree of cohesion? Old Jiang's troops had aircraft, artillery, machine guns, but weren't they also scammed by the little devil? In the end, Lao Zhang also lost the great rivers and mountains. Why is this? It's very simple, because Chiang's troops have no cohesion. If the North American Indians of this era have a high degree of cohesion, those European whites will definitely not be able to cross the Appalachian Mountains westward. And the purpose of what Shi Xiong did after coming to the Gaoshu tribe was to stimulate the cohesion of these 300 people. It looks obviously good now, except for a handful of people in the tribe who have opinions about themselves. Most of the other tribesmen are now very willing to participate in these things done by the guardian. Even children as young as 5 or 6 will spontaneously organize groups to help. Even if these little guys can't do big things, they can help carry a few small pieces of iron ore to the head office, right? Those older tribesmen, they can no longer do heavy physical work, but they cook for the tribesmen at home, right? Those women can't build the blast furnace, can't go out to catch the bison, but they are plowing the farmland at home, right? And why would they do this? It's very simple, because they see a bright future in these things that Shi Xiong has done, and they are willing to contribute their own strength for a better future. What is this? This is the concrete manifestation of cohesion. Early this morning, all the tribesmen who had been busy for 4 days stopped their work. After breakfast, they all gathered in the open space in the middle of the village. Now in that open space, besides the big coking pit and the stone house where the refractory bricks are fired, there is another big guy over 5 meters high, that is, the earth blast furnace built in the 4 days of assault. The outer shell of this earthen blast furnace is built with rocks and mud, and the hearth is made of refractory bricks. There are scaffolds around the uppermost mouth of the earth blast furnace, which are used to pour materials, and there are 4 large wind boxes next to the blast furnace, which are used for blasting the blast furnace. Outside the taphole of the blast furnace, there is a fang tang built with refractory bricks. Around the fang tang, there are many molds made of kaolin built on top of the pit. Once the molten iron flows out from the tap hole, it will flow directly into the square pond, and then add crushed pig iron particles into it, stir constantly to fully decarburize the molten iron, and finally scoop it out with a stone spoon and pour it into the heated in the mold. In fact, this earthen blast furnace was built yesterday afternoon. After Shi Xiong taught the tribes to use scaffolding, the speed of building the blast furnace increased a lot. Then, last night, Shi Xiong let the tribe ignite the wood inside the blast furnace. The raging fire burned the whole blast furnace completely overnight. Today is the day when Master Guardian prepares to make steel. Lai, Han Yun, Bigfoot, the high-ranking tribes all came, and even the Wolftail came. I don't know what Lilei said to Wolftail. Anyway, this guy has been very honest these days. It doesn't matter to Shi Xiong, as long as this guy doesn't make trouble or drag his feet, Shi Xiong will not target him. However, if this guy is still ignorant and has to make trouble and drag his feet, then Shi Xiong would not mind fighting this guy again. The situation is now very good, and Shi Xiong doesn't want a rat to ruin a pot of broth. The powerful efficiency of the combination of Kuai and plow plus taming bison and plowing the land, as well as the steel made by the stone bear through the cauldron that day, plus his feat of hunting red deer and bison alone, is enough to make him in high prestige has been established in the Gaoshu tribe. Not to mention that he himself was already the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice. The tribesmen in the tribe are not fools. They can see that the guardian is truly for the tribe and the tribe, so they have unknowingly regarded the guardian as the core of the sacrifice after the leader and Kabru, and they are also willing to follow Master Guardian to do things. Seeing that all the people from the Yuanyan clan came, Shi Xiong was also a little smug at this moment, so he waved his hand and shouted loudly, "Install the stove." A group of people who had been prepared for a long time began to mix the weighed coke, small iron ore, and small limestone www.wuxiaspot.com and then sent them to the scaffolding, and then used the hanging basket to mix these from the scaffolding. The material is put into the hearth of the blast furnace. The materials put into the blast furnace when making iron are also very particular. They should not be placed randomly. Once the ratio is wrong, the ghost knows what kind of iron will be made. In the iron smelting process of later generations, the ratio of iron ore, coke and limestone needed to smelt 1 ton of molten iron is about 16 to 5:3. In other words, to smelt 1 ton of qualified molten iron, about 1.6 tons of iron ore, 500 kilograms of coke and 300 kilograms of limestone are required. Of course, this ratio is not static. It needs to be slightly changed according to the iron content of the iron ore. Shi Xiong does not have the ability to test the iron content of iron ore, so he can only determine the ratio by estimation. Anyway, it's not just smelting this furnace of molten iron. If the molten iron produced this time is unqualified, then change the ratio next time. There are no quality supervision bureaus and no customer complaints these days, so let's just do it. In order to be able to weigh more rigorously, Shi Xiong also let the old wood build a tool similar to a seesaw. The eldest son of the old wood saw the weight of about 120 kilograms. When the weight was over, let the cross saw sit on one end of the seesaw, and then put the separate iron ore into the large basket at the other end. Coke and limestone can finally get a more accurate figure. Although it cannot be accurate to a few taels, an error of 10 kilograms is acceptable. When I have a chance to come up with a scale in the future, the weighing matter will be easy to talk about. P.S. Bow to thank Lazy Reader and Blue Moon God 100 for their rewards. Chapter 65, Baked. Basket after basket of materials were quickly put into this earth blast furnace. The earth blast furnace is not big. Even if all the coke is put in at once, only about 3 tons of molten iron can be smelted. 3 tons of iron sounds like a lot, but don't forget that the proportion of iron exceeds 7, and these 3 tons of iron don't even have half a cubic meter. However, this is high enough for the tree tribe currently. Before the feeding, a lot of wood has been set up in the blast furnace. Under the condition that there is no kerosene for ignition, wood can only be used to ignite the fire. As for whether the carbon contained in the wood will have any effect on the molten iron, at this time Shi Xiong can no longer take care of it. After all, it is the first time to smelt iron with an earth blast furnace. As long as molten iron can be successfully smelted, it is the greatest victory. Ignite! Shi Xiong yelled again, and then the tribe with a long-handled torch stuffed the torch in from the tap hole in the outlet. After a while, the gas outlet and feed inlet on the top of the blast furnace began to emerge. The billowing smoke. It took a long time for the thick smoke to gradually dissipate. At this time, even through the thick furnace wall, the surrounding clansmen could hear the whooping flames in the furnace. The 8 clansmen were divided into 4 groups and stood in front of the 4 bellows, and began to pull the bellows to spray a steady stream of fresh air into the furnace. In fact, the best way to make iron is to spray hot air with a temperature of over 1000 degrees into the furnace, but where are the conditions for heating the air now? So, let the cold air be cold air. The big deal is to burn it for a while. Coke is not as unburnt as charcoal. When the coke burns, it not only produces extremely high temperatures, but it also has an extremely long burning time. As the coke is ignited by the wood and releases a huge amount of heat, the iron ore and limestone that have been crushed into small pieces also begin to chemically react with the continuous injection of fresh air. When the coke burns more and more vigorously under the support of the influx of fresh air, iron ore and limestone begin to melt. Because of the limitation of the furnace, the heat cannot be dissipated. The temperature in the belly of the earth blast furnace quickly rose to over 1500 Baidu, and it continued to rise until it stabilized at around 1700 Baidu. Although this process it will take a long time. At this temperature, the iron ore has completely melted, and the pure iron contained in the iron ore turns into pure molten iron, and those impurities will react with limestone to produce slag. These slags will interact with the burning coke and carbon. The floats on the molten iron and is finally released from the outlet. A clan member stood on the scaffolding at the top of the blast furnace and observed the changes in the furnace from a distance through the observation hole. Although the light in the hearth is extremely dazzling, it can be seen whether the iron ore inside has melted and molten iron is generated. From morning until noon, the clan person standing on the scaffold shouted excitedly, "There is already a lot of molten iron in the stove." Shi Xiong smiled slightly. Since molten iron is formed, it means that this iron making has not failed. After waiting for a long time, Shi Xiong ordered the prepared tribe to release the refractory plate at the outlet. In this kind of small blast furnace iron making, the must be discharged first, and then the molten iron can be discharged from the tap hole after the is discharged 2 or 3 times. This process lasted about half an hour. Finally, when the outlet was basically no slag, Shi Xiong ordered the tribe to open the refractory plate of the iron outlet. When the heavy refractory plate was opened, the white molten iron carried huge heat from the tap hole and flowed into the heated square pond below. The square pond suddenly heated up and the sky above the square pond was heated. The air is distorted. The clansmen who had been preparing for a long time threw the smashed pig iron pellets into the fang tang. These pig iron particles were smashed out by Stone Bear collecting all the iron tools left in the tribe. Although the steel filling method is easy to use, Shi Xiong finally realized that he did not have wrought iron on hand. The steel filling method requires wrought iron to react with molten iron, and finally steel can be obtained. Since there is no wrought iron, just use the fried steel method. Anyway, these two steel-making methods are in the same line. The smashed pig iron fell into the fang tang and quickly melted. At this time, the temperature of the molten iron absolutely exceeded 1500 Baidu, and these pig irons containing a large amount of impurities could not withstand such a high temperature at all. After these people scattered the smashed pig iron, they quickly picked up the stone rods made of kaolin and began to mix them in the molten iron desperately. After mixing for a while, these tribesmen were already sweating profusely. Standing next to a fang tang with a temperature of over 1500 Baidu to stir the molten iron is not an easy task. Even if the weather is a bit cold now, the people standing next to the fang tang still can't resist the huge heat emitted by the molten iron for a long time. But it doesn't matter, there are other tribesmen who will take their place and continue to confuse them. When the molten iron began to change a bit to a semi-solidified and semi-liquid state, Shi Xiong gave the order again, scoop the molten iron into the mold. Suddenly, dozens of tribesmen with long-handled stone spoons put the heated stone spoons into the molten iron, then scooped out a spoonful of molten iron and poured it into the heated mold. These molds that are being heated include hammers, iron felts, thin iron plates, shovels, hoes, curved plowshares, columbine, steel bars and other shapes. These first batches of steel must first be rushed, the most needed tool. Of course, iron knives, iron spearheads, and big iron pans are also indispensable, but the quantity is a little less. With the hammer and iron felt, some stronger steel products can be processed. After all, this kind of steel products produced in the form of casting cannot be subjected to heat treatment such as quenching. However, after the hammer and iron felt, it can be forged by heating the iron. Other steel products can be processed by hammering, and various heat treatment processes can also be carried out to strengthen the strength of steel products. Thin iron plates are prepared for subsequent steel making. After testing the carbon content of the iron and steel from this furnace, if the carbon content is relatively low, then these thin iron plates can be used for the next iron smelting. It's time to fill the steel. As for tools such as shovels and hoes, let alone increase the output of food, the first task now is to increase the output of food. Only when the output of food is increased, can the people of the tribe have the mind to do other things such as steel making and salt making. And those steel bars, needless to say, we're prepared for tame bison. Stone bears don't plan to let the tribe's tamed buffalo be just a few. There are definitely not too many tamed buffaloes. I don't dare to say that there is one man, but at least it is necessary to ensure that every household has such a large animal, so that the food will be provided, the output will be adequately guaranteed. Of course, if the tribe wants more tamed bison to form a bison team, then it's not impossible, but it needs a lot of bullnose rings. Chapter 66, Lessons Learned. The confident stone bear suffered the first blow to travel into this world. Without him, this furnace of steel smelting was not successful. It can't be said to be unsuccessful. When the tribesmen in the tribe saw the tools and iron supplies taken out of the mold, they all seemed to be happy. Anyway, they were about to treat the stone bears as gods. Look at it. Where did the clansmen in the Gaoshu tribe have seen so many iron tools? After all, these smelted iron tools weighed 3 tons. If calculated on the basis of an iron knife weighing 10 kilograms, it would be a total of 600 iron knives. This amount is something the people of the tribe couldn't even think of before. You must know that when trading with those Vasikas, 10 beautiful skins or 2 bison hides can be exchanged for an iron pot, and it is said that the Pamungi people can live in the eastern coastal area with an iron knife, exchange there for a big bag of salt. With so many iron wares, how much fur must be saved for the tribe, and how much salt can be exchanged for the Pamungi people in the east. Therefore, the tribesmen in the tribe are as happy as they are celebrating the Green Valley Festival. In their eyes, although the magical guardian has commanded himself to be busy for so many days and is still so tired, now he has so many iron tools, then it's all worth it. For Shi Xiong, this patch of so-called steel is completely destroyed. Originally, Shi Xiong intended to make real steel. Even if low-carbon steel cannot be made, at least it must be high-carbon steel. As long as it is steel, it is stronger than iron. But in fact, this batch of hundreds of steel tools, most of which belong to the scope of pig iron, only a few farm tools can meet the requirements of high-carbon steel. Whether the steel produced is qualified, just check its toughness. Shi Xiong confidently took out the rebars cast by molds. There is no way. There is no wire drawing machine here, so I can only use this method to get rebars. Then Shi Xiong just used a slight force, and the rebar in his hand turned into two pieces with a click. Obviously, the toughness of this rebar was far from meeting the requirements, and the color of the fracture is the gray that makes Shi Xiong discouraged. Needless to say, the carbon content of this furnace of steel exceeds the standard, and a good furnace of steel is made into pig iron. This result made Shi Xiong very helpless but also very confused. Although he has never smelted steel and does not know the correct method of steel making, he still knows the general procedure, and he has used the fry steel method to fry it in a crucible before. Carbon steel. Furthermore, steel making is a process of decarburizing molten iron with relatively high carbon content. Shi Xiong, who was a schoolmaster when he was in school, knows exactly what this decarburization process is all about. A few short chemical equations can show the entire steel-making process. But the problem is that knowing the principle is one thing, but really making good steel is another. Could it be that buddies are really the legendary masters with low eyes? Shi Xiong thought for a long time, and pulled the chemical equations in his heart for a long time, but in the end he didn't find out why. It is said that when the iron ore is completely melted into molten iron and flows into the square pond, the tribes vigorously stirred it to form wrought iron. The pig iron fragments are added to it to increase the carbon content in the molten iron and change it from wrought iron. Steel. Could it be that too much pig iron was added in the process of frying steel? Shi Xiong asked himself silently. But this is unlikely. The proportion of crushed pig iron added to the molten iron is based on the ratio of the medium carbon steel that was successfully fried last time, and it is even a little lower than that. I originally thought that the molten iron will eventually form mature iron or low-carbon steel. Well, I didn't expect it to become pig iron, but it turned into pig iron as a result. If there is no problem with the operation of the whole process, then there is a problem with the process. Shi Xiong sat alone in the distance, looking at the earth blast furnace in the distance, thinking slowly. First of all, the raw materials should not be a big problem. Hematite, limestone, and coke produced by ourselves are all things that produce molten iron, and the produced during the smelting process also proves that these three raw materials should be no problem. Shi Xiong grabbed a piece of in his hand, and finally denied the possibility of a problem with the raw material. There should be no problem with the blast furnace itself. Even if it is a soil blast furnace, it is just a heating place. If there is a problem with the earth blast furnace, it should not be because the molten iron produced is unqualified, but because accidents such as collapse or gas deflagration occur. So, the earth blast furnace should be no problem. The problem should be the process after the molten iron is formed. Shi Xiong looked at the Fang Tang, a spirit in his heart, and immediately realized where the problem was. According to the normal principle, after the molten iron flows into the square pond from the hearth, after sufficient stirring, the impurities in the molten iron can fully oxidize with the oxygen in the air, thereby successfully decarburizing. The decarburization rate of this method is still very high. Otherwise it will not add pig iron fragments as a reducing agent to increase the carbon content. But now the carbon content is obviously higher. This is obviously because the stirring of the molten iron in the Fang Tang is not even enough, and the impurities contained in the molten iron have not fully oxidized with oxygen. www.wuxiasput.com, which eventually leads to the content of the molten iron. The carbon content is still relatively high. Thinking of this, Shi Xiong stood up, walked quickly to Fang Tang, looked at the burn marks left by the molten iron in the Fang Tang, and finally nodded. Obviously, the square pond is still a little too small, causing the molten iron to be too deep in the square pond, so even if it is stirred with a stone rod, the molten iron at the bottom of the square pond cannot be brought into contact with the air. resulting in the upper layer being fully oxidized and decarbonized, but the molten iron below is still not completely decarbonized. This is also the reason why, although most of the ironware in this batch are unqualified, there is still a small part of qualified steel. You must know that molten iron is not like ordinary clean water. It can be mixed up by mixing it casually. The molten iron is extremely dense, and it is very laborious to stir. One way is to find a way to increase the intensity of mixing, then improve the manual mixing method and add some tools. Standing on the edge of the Fang Tang, Shi Xiong thought silently, but then he shook his head. Although improving the mixing method is also a solution, this method is not easy to achieve, at least not well under today's conditions. Then, build another square pond and transfer a furnace of iron water into 2 square ponds, so that the molten iron in the square pond can be half shallow, and the molten iron at the bottom can be mixed up by stirring. This method should work. Looking at the open space next to Fang Tang, the more Shi Xiong thought about it, the more he felt that this method should solve the problem. The reason why human society can continue to develop is because people as the main body of human society can continuously summarize the experience of failure, and then apply the summarized experience to the next attempt, and finally find a way to succeed. P.S. Boat to thank the Villa Aquaman 100 for the reward. Chapter 67, Vasiku is coming. Although he has figured out how to decarbonize as much as possible, Shi Xiong does not want to make another furnace of steel in the near future. It is not so easy to make steel. Limestone, iron ore, and coal must be dug out and transported back. The project alone requires hundreds of people to work for several days. And I have to make coking when I come back, so the preparation work just before opening the furnace will take several days. The most important thing is that the iron tools in the tribe are enough now. Although there are not many iron weapons, the warriors in the tribe can have an iron knife or an iron spear anyway. As for the farm tools used for planting, this time casting is enough. Weapons made of pig iron may not be qualified, but at any rate they are not even better than bone spears and bone rods. The farm tools made of pig iron are more than enough for arable land and sowing. The only thing missing now is steel bars. There is no way to make a bullnose ring without that stuff. But if you simply smelt steel, you don't need to start the furnace again. Some of the kaolin is that a larger kaolin clay crucible is made, and then a pot of steel is fried by the steel frying method, which is enough to make a bullnose ring. Steel making in a blast furnace is difficult to control. Isn't it difficult to control steel in a crucible? Don't talk about stone bears. Even a wooden planer can produce a pot of qualified steel. The wood planer has shown great interest in this industry since he came into contact with steel making. The most important thing is that this guy seems to be very talented in this industry. It is like this time the furnace is opened for steel making, and the wood planer is in it, at least half of the work done. The key processes of weighing and proportioning materials are based on what this guy meant. Ishikawa also wanted to train him very much. If he could really train this guy, he wouldn't have to spend more energy on steel making. Therefore, apart from taking out some unused farm tools and reusing the crucible to make enough steel bars, Shi Xiong does not plan to start steel making in the near future. Dalian, what are you thinking about? Hong Yun's words awakened Shi Xiong from his contemplation. When he looked up, Shi Xiong was almost hit by a thunder in the shape of Hong Yun. At this time, Hong Yun was wearing ordinary animal skin clothes, carrying a wooden handle on his back, holding a freshly bladed kitchen knife in his left hand, and a peeling knife with the same blade in his right hand. If Shi Xiong hadn't known her, he would really think that the lady in front of him was Ernie's son who specializes in human flesh buns. Seeing Shi Xiong's uncontrollable look, Hong Yun turned around in confusion. What? Is there any problem with me? No, no problem, absolutely no problem. Shi Xiong smiled and waved his hand. What are you going to do? What are you not doing? I just came back from Musha and asked for these things from him. Hong Yun raised the 2 knives in his hands. Shi Xiong patted his forehead and said helplessly, well, you'd better not move this thing lightly, especially the skinning knife, which is very sharp, and it will cut your hands if you are not careful. The skinning knives used in the tribe were all polished with stone or beef bone. The sharpness can be imagined. Cutting meat with a dull knife is not enough to describe the sharpness of those skinning knives. But fur is also an important material in the tribe's foreign trade, so when casting farm tools this time, he deliberately cast 20 small skinning knives. After this thing is sharpened, as long as it is often polished, it is a pleasure to peel it off, and it is deeply liked by the tribe. It's not that I don't know how to use a skinning knife. I used to skinning prey with my people. Well, this small knife is very easy to use. I like it very much. It's fine if you like it, but the quality of this knife is not very good. When we succeed in smelting better steel, I will use the best high-carbon steel to create the sharpest skinning knife for you. Envy. Words made Hong Yun smile. Don't look at the mother of 2 babies. This girl is still like a child, very pleasing. In 7 or 8 days, the trading team of the Vasikas coming from the east may be coming. The trading teams of these Vasikas usually come once every 3 months. I want to ask if you have anything you want. I will prepare the trade for you in advance. You have been busy with tribal affairs these days, and you rarely go out hunting. You don't have any fur or gems or yellow iron in your hands. Then those tiles the West choose are here. If you don't have anything to exchange with them, you won't get what they have. Those Vasikas are very cunning. Hearing Hong Yun's words, Shi Xiong's interest suddenly came. Is Vasiku's trading team coming soon? Shi Xiong asked uncertainly. It should be coming soon. It may be earlier or later, but the weather this year is pretty good, and those Vasikas should not be late. These words immediately made Shi Xiong's brains turn quickly. The favorite thing of European colonists is yellow iron. The so-called yellow iron is the name of gold by North American Indians. www.wuxiaspa.com. Even after having been in contact with the Vasikas for so long, but they still don't know why these Vasikas are so obsessed with the useless yellow iron. Yes, in this era, gold, a precious metal that is enough to make anyone crazy in the old continent, seems to be useless in the eyes of North American Indians. At most, it is used to decorate themselves. They are concerned about gold. The value of it is not understood at all. This can be seen from North American Indians calling gold yellow iron. P.S. This is not a nonsense by Lao Mo. Before the mid-19th century, North American Indians did not value gold as much as ironware. In addition to gold, there are various gems and furs. In fact, the Appalachian Mountains are also rich in various gems. Later, in the Appalachian Mountains in western North Carolina, they are rich in red sapphires, emeralds, moonstones and other gems. This is where the Gaoshu tribe is located. The area is not only rich in gems, but the tribe can also pick up small pieces of yellow iron from time to time in the mountain creeks. Later generations called the Appalachian Mountains a treasure mountain. That's not nonsense. As for fur, let alone. Although the Cherokee people are now part of a farming and part game hunting nation, hunting still occupies a very important position in the lives of the Cherokee people. After removing the fur needed to make clothes and tents, a lot of fur is left in the tribe every month. It's just that the stone bears don't have these things now. But it doesn't matter if you don't have these things, you still have a valuable material in your hand that is not inferior to gold and gems. Ishikame's thoughts can't help but float to the small salt mountain I once saw when digging limestone some time ago. Chapter 68. I want to teach people how to make salt. What? You said this salt mountain can provide us with a lot of edible salt? It's impossible. Lilei stared at the stone bear with eyes full of disbelief. Guardian, we all know this hill. It's a salt mountain, but the salt of this salt mountain can't be eaten at all. It will kill you if you eat it. The Bigfoot on the side nodded and said, Yes, Master Guardian, the leader is right. Our ancestors discovered this salt mountain when they first came here 200 years ago. Unfortunately, this salt mountain, the salt produced is not edible at all. The salt produced in this salt mountain is not only bitter, but people will turn purple after eating it. If you eat too much, you will die. Many of our ancestors ate too much of this salt mountain. Salt died suddenly. Since then, our Gaoshu tribe and all the surrounding tribes no longer eat the salt here. Hong Yun, Jiao Naiu and other tribal leaders also nodded one after another. Obviously, they all knew about this salt mountain. Shi Xiong shook his head helplessly. Everyone in later generations knows that salt, whether it is sea salt or salt produced on land, cannot be eaten directly. The sea salt that is directly dried in the sun cannot be eaten directly, it suffers to death, there are many impurities in it, and it needs to be cooked again before it can be eaten. Therefore, most of the sea salt directly dried in later generations is used to make industrial salt. The same is true for salt produced on land. Even the best well salt must first be injected with water to turn it into brine, and then pumped up through a series of processes such as filtration and evaporation to form edible salt. In short, as long as it is natural salt, it cannot be eaten directly. The impurities contained in it are not only bitter and astringent, but the most important thing is that it can eat people to death. Natural salt contains a large amount of nitrate, phosphorus, potassium and other impurities, which can be fatal to eat too much. Nitrate is used to lower blood pressure. If you eat too much, your blood pressure will plummet to a certain level. Even a sturdy guy with a physique like Shi Xiong can't stand it. As for phosphorus, that kind of thing can't be said to be as highly toxic as cyanide. It's not much worse, and after eating it, people must turn purple all over. These impurities are not needed by the human body. Later generations have heard that there are calcium and iron supplements, but have you ever heard of phosphorus supplements and nitrate supplements? Is such a rationale? Is like the small salt mountain. Before the people of the Gaoshu tribe mastered the processing techniques of crushing, dissolving, filtering, and analyzing, it was a salt mountain that could be seen but not eaten, and it was no different from chicken ribs. But once these processing techniques can be mastered, then this salt mountain is immediately a treasure mountain. In fact, even those white people in Europe in this era have very few people who can master this processing technology. Even if they do, it is the most fundamental secret. People are pointing to the take-out salt to make money. Who would stupidly tell the secrets of their own family? But the stone bear from the era of the later information Big Bang naturally knows this kind of processing technology. So Shi Xiong smiled and said to Li Lei and the others, "Don't be so sure that the salt here is not edible." That's right, before I came here, the salt here was really not edible, but now I'm here. The salt here, it will immediately become edible salt, and it's the kind of refined salt you've never seen before. These words full of self-confidence made the people of the High Tree tribe take a breath of cold air. Hong Yun said very simply, "Dalijian, what do you need?" "You can choose people and things." Shi Xiong thought for a while and said, "I need all the people of the clan to come here. I will teach the clan how to turn these poisonous salt into edible refined salt." After a pause, he continued, "But before that, I need to do a little preparation. Then, by tomorrow, all the people who can come from the tribe are better to come over, and if there is no benefit, the family must have one person. I won't cherish this skill for myself. I will teach this skill to all the people tomorrow." Li Lei was startled when he heard this, then he pulled the stone bear aside and whispered, "Guardian, do you really want to teach the skill to all the people?" Shi Xiong glanced at Li Lei and nodded slightly. "Leader, you have to understand one thing, that is, what I want is never personal strong wealth. What I want is the common strength of our entire tribe and even our entire ethnic group, and wealthy." The prophecy of the Cabra sacrificial priest who led our people from the Cherokee royal court more than 200 years ago. You should know that those Vasikas are not good people. At this point, the Supreme Sun also once told me, in a certain period of time in the future, those Vasikas will raise butcher knives against our people. They will use guns to kill our people and take our land. If we don't grow, then we sooner or later they will be killed by those Vasikas. So, take advantage of the fact that those Vasikas have not yet developed and grown. www.wuxiaspa.com. We must seize all the time and opportunities to strengthen ourselves as much as possible, so as to resist those Vasiku's offense. The words of Li Lei were a bit creepy. He didn't believe it at first, but after seeing Shi Xiong's gloomy face and angry eyes, he couldn't help but believe it. "Well, Guardian, do whatever you want, Cabru, and I will definitely support you." Shi Xiong glanced at Li Lei again, and said softly, "I hope you are not just talking." With this look, Li Lei's hairs all over his body exploded. but he did not dare to say anything. The forging of that furnace of iron 2 days ago has given this guardian a very high reputation and status in the tribe. The most important thing is that Li Lei knew very well that Kabulu was absolutely standing with the guardian. Shi Xiong ignored Li Lei, who was in a daze, turned around and walked to Hong Yun, and then said loudly, "After I go back, I need to make some preparations. You are responsible for informing every member of the tribe. I hope that all members of the tribe can do their best tomorrow. Came here." As he said, Shi Xiong turned on his horse, and the whip lightly tapped the horse's butt, and the black steed immediately ran up. In fact, there are not many things that need to be prepared, and the most troublesome is stone grinding. However, some of the tribes are masons. It can be said that almost every family has a person who is proficient in mason crafts. Stone knives, stone rods, stone spears, stone bullets, stone shovel, stone bowls, stone plates, stone tables, stone benches. North American Indians used stones even more than bones, so almost each Indian is an outstanding stonemason. Should not be a problem for them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Bullock Cart. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, it would be hard for Shi Xiong to imagine how the North American Indians without iron or steel made various tools from hard rock. After seeing it, Shi Xiong really admired the patience of these people. Although the people have a lot of iron tools in their hands, they still use the old methods when they make stone mills. This method is very simple, but it is also time-consuming. They just smash the stone with the stone, and then use the abrasive tool made of obsidian to grind the stone, and finally grind out what they want to build. Obsidian is the most common high-hardness tool used by North American Indians. This makes Shi Xiong very helpless and a little painful. These guys obviously already have iron tools in their hands, but why do they still use this primitive method to make stone tools? Shi Xiong asked several clansmen, and the answers they gave were almost the same: reluctant. The hammers, chisels and other tools in their hands are obviously for dealing with stones, but they are reluctant to use them for fear of ruining these tools during use. For these people, the iron tools in their hands are family heirlooms. How could they be used in such a dangerous work of making stone tools? Regarding this, Shi Xiong expressed his extreme incomprehension. But he has nothing to do. But fortunately, these guys did not delay the stone bear. Even if they still used that primitive way to make stone grinders, it only took 2 days. 10 pairs of stone grinders with a diameter of almost 2 feet were enough. They have been created one after another. Then these stone mills were moved to several large carts that were just made, and the tamed bison was pulled to the salt mountain. North American Indians had no means of transportation with wheels before. Even if they came into contact with European colonists, vehicles as a means of transportation did not spread among their tribes. In this regard, Shi Xiong once again expressed the pain of the egg. Therefore, when casting tools, he deliberately cast more than 10 thick bearings. With these bearing bushes, even if the bearing is not available for the time being, you can add boiled butter to the bearing bush, then the wooden axle can rotate freely, and the basic conditions for building a 4-wheeled bull cart are solved. Perhaps the Indians had invented vehicles with wheels a long time ago, but they have not been able to solve the problem of wear between the wooden axles and the frame. In addition, the early Indians were safari people, and they didn't need a car to pull a lot. That's why there is no market for this kind of transportation with wheels. Before the advent of bearings and industrial butter, the wheels of vehicles were fixed to the axles, and the axles rotated with the wheels. As a result, the joint between the axle and the frame will produce huge wear. If it is just the axle wear, it is good to say, after all, it is much easier to replace the axle than to replace the frame. The problem is that the axles and the frame are made of wood, and the friction is mutual. In the process of axle wear, the frame will also wear out. The North American Indians did not master the method of smelting steel before, so even if they have vehicles, they still can't solve the problem of friction between wood and wood. In addition, the vehicles are not very useful to the North American Indians, so the vehicles are not very useful. This kind of transportation has not become popular on the North American continent. Now it's different. To make steel, you must have a heavy-duty transportation vehicle. Otherwise, with human power, how much coal and iron ore can be transported in a year? Therefore, when smelting the first furnace of steel, whether it works or not, Shi Xiong has prepared such things as casting bearings early. Once the bearing shell is cast, it can be directly mounted on the frame and directly contact with the axle made of wood. There are many excellent hardwoods in North America in this era. Among them, red oak and walnut produced near the Great Smoky Mountains are excellent hardwoods. Red oak is harder and suitable for axles. Although walnut is not as hard as red oak, it has high-quality toughness and shock resistance, so it is best to use walnut for wheels. Red oak trees are everywhere at this time, and a large oak tree can make many excellent axles. No matter how hard the axle is, it is not nearly 2 centimeters thick. Grind away. As long as the bearing bush is not worn out, just replacing the axle will not have much effect. Moreover, building an ox cart is not much more complicated than building a curved plow, so the old Muko and his family went into battle. With more than 20 helpers, 2 4x4s were built in just 2 days. Wheel ox cart. Of course, this kind of bullock cart is the kind with a turntable on the front axle, that is, a wooden turntable that can turn 360 degrees is added to the front axle. The turntable is installed on the load-bearing axle below, and the upper layer of the turntable is the car frame. In this way, when turning, the turntable can move freely, so that the four-wheel ox cart can make small angle turns. As for the animals that are pulled, they are naturally powerful to tame the bison. Although there are not many tamed bisons in the tribe now, I'm reading www.whocanshoe.com, but in the future there will be more and more tame bisons. Pulling out 2 cows to pull the cart is nothing at all. These 2 newly built bullock carts immediately became the most famous celebrities in the tribe. Both adults and children want to ride in this bullock cart and feel the taste of traveling long distances without having to walk on their own. It's absolutely no problem for this cart to pull a 1-kilo caddy item. Even if it's pulling people, it can pull 7 or 8 adults at a time. A pair of stone mills weighs about 200 kilograms. 10 sets of stone mills and 2 bullock carts can be pulled from the tribe to the bottom of the small salt mountain at one time. Under the arrangement of the stone bear, a hay loft was also set up at the foot of the small salt mountain. By then, these 10 stone mills will be placed here to grind the salt blocks mined from the salt mountain. In addition to the hay lofts where the stone mills are placed, there are also hay lofts for boiling salt. The big iron pots that the stone bears originally cast for the tribe came in handy. Originally, the stone bear cast 20 large iron pots for the tribe. This time, because of the need to boil salt, the stone bear simply had to come out 5 large iron pots. This kind of big iron pot is not small, one weighs about 20 caddies, which is about the same size as the later Liuyan iron pot. Now these iron pots have also been pulled over, and they rested securely on the clay stove just built. But you don't need coal to cook salt, just picking some firewood from the woods is enough to cook salt. Almost all members of the tribe were dispatched early in the morning, and even the people who cultivated the land and planted seeds suspended their work. The news that Master Guardian will teach the tribesmen how to make salt has spread throughout the tribe in the past 2 days, and all tribesmen will not let this opportunity pass. Although food is very important, it is undoubtedly more important than salt. Chapter 70, Angry Stone Bear. You can no longer use stone axes and stone hammers. I worked so hard to refine those tools for everyone, not for you to put them at home. They are to be used. Shi Xiong stood in the small at the foot of the Yanshan mountain. He screamed at the tribe with his big eyes. A group of people who were digging into the salt mountain were afraid to speak, and they were as scared as quail. Don't think Shi Xiong usually loses his temper, but when he gets angry, that kind of aura is really not something ordinary people can resist. To these tribes who are almost still in primitive society, Shi Xiong tries his best to respond with the gentlest attitude, just like later generations of adult street children. Although most of these tribesmen have grown up for a long time, in Shi Xiong's eyes, they are a group of children who have not grown up, including high-level tribes such as Lilei, Hangyun, and Jiaoniu. It is not an exaggeration to say that the 4 or 5-year-old children of later generations may have more knowledge than these people. Therefore, these people need to be cultivated slowly, just like raising children at home. Although Shi Xiong in his previous life was not married and had no children, he was still an uncle. When his nephew was young, Shi Xiong did not go to his sister's house to help take care of the children. At that time, he had a strong reason, that is, to start with the nephew. I practice my hands, and when I have a son in the future, I will raise my son according to the experience of cultivating a nephew. As a result, Shi Xiong's son didn't know that he was with that girl. He was hit by a Cadillac into the North American continent more than 250 years ago, and encountered this group of Indians who were similar to the children. So, after he figured out all this, he was ready to apply the child-raising method he had developed from his nephew to these people. Like a wolf's tail, this guy was openly and secretly against the stone bear, and sometimes bullied the stone bear blatantly. At most, the stone bear beat the guy, but never killed him. My own children will be scoured again, and the most parents are just beating up. You can't kill your children just because they are scouring. But today, Shi Xiong is really a little angry. It may be that the attitude towards this group of guys is usually too good, so this group of guys are a little bit on their noses, and I repeatedly confessed that they let them use iron to dig the salt mountain, but this group of guys are not obedient. Quick horse, take a few people back to the tribe on horseback, and bring me all the iron tools. Hammers and chisels can't be missing, Shi Xiong said to Kuema, who also couldn't help sticking out his tongue, and nodded in panic. Lilei and Hangyun also had a bit of scorn on their faces, nodding their heads to agree that Kuema will lead the people to the tribe. Taking advantage of the time when Kuema took the people back to get the tools, Shi Xiong said to those who were idle, "Come here, don't be idle now, take out the charcoal that was burned yesterday and smash it all." Well, this is okay. Use a stone hammer to filter out impurities and salt. Activated carbon is undoubtedly the best, and activated carbon is obtained after deep processing of charcoal. If you want to make activated charcoal, you must first burn wood into charcoal. This is what some tribesmen have burned a lot under the guidance of Shi Xiong yesterday. But charcoal is not activated carbon yet, so today we just use the scap to make activated carbon. In fact, even if activated charcoal is not used, it is not impossible to filter it directly with charcoal. But there are a lot of impurities and the color is not very beautiful. After all, charcoal is not made into activated carbon. If it is directly used for filtration, the black soup alone can make people look at the eyelids numb. To process charcoal into activated carbon, it is best to use sodium carbonate solution, but Shi Xiong does not have sodium carbonate on hand. For the master class Shi Xiong, although sodium carbonate is a good thing, it takes time. He doesn't have the time to drink sodium carbonate now. It doesn't matter if there is no sodium carbonate. After the charcoal is wrapped, boil it in water for a while and cook it several times. The charcoal that has just been burnt still contains a lot of oil inside, and most of the internal micropores are blocked, so the direct use of it for filtering is not good. Smash the charcoal, wrap it in a linen cloth, rinse it with water, then add a lot of water to the pot and boil it. Although this method is not as effective as boiling with sodium carbonate solution, it can also boil most of the oil in the charcoal, and it can also open most of the micropores in the charcoal. There are many in the linen tribe, all of which are traded with white Europeans who trade their fur. Even though the Cherokees have been in contact with European colonists, they still don't know how to weave by themselves. These linen cloths are also very valuable to the tribesmen. After they exchanged them with the Waxikas, they couldn't bear to use them. This time it happened to be cheap stone bears, otherwise stone bears would be really difficult to make salt. When they came back with a dozen sets of hammers and chisels, www.wuxiaspot.com, Shi Xiong brought a lot of activated charcoal with the people. It is said that these freshly boiled activated carbons are best used after drying, but Shi Xiong has no time, and the wet activated carbon is not unusable, it just needs to pack more. Some tribesmen took hammers and chisels and began to grit their teeth to excavate the salt mountain. The posture was like throwing the most precious things to the ground. It can be seen that these tribes really feel sorry for these iron tools. But hammers and chisels are obviously much easier to use than stone hammers and stone axes. In a short while, they chiseled down a lot of salt, although in the process 2 chisels were cut because they were not of good quality. The 2 tribesmen were crying and very unhappy, but such a large amount of salt made Shi Xiong happy. Next, use the tools in your hands to smash all these large pieces of salt. The more you smash, the better. Also, you must remember this process. This is an indispensable process in the salt-making process, Shi Xiong said loudly to this group of working people. Then, the sound of ding-ding-dong-dong sounded at the scene. As long as the salt block is chiseled off, it is much easier to smash it again. Whether it is a stone hammer or a stone axe, or even a random hard stone, these blocks of salt can be smashed into small particles. But this level of small particles is obviously not enough, so the 10 stone mills that Shi Xiong brought came in handy. This poor group of people didn't even know how to use the stone mill. After Shi Xiong's personal demonstration, these people began to put the crushed salt particles into the stone mill, and then each incarnate, the old donkey that was grinding, started to push the stone in a circle. There are a lot of people and strength, and soon, a lot of very fine ground salt powder flowed out from the outlet of the stone mill. Chapter 71, Carnival. To remove the impurities in the salt must be crushed. The more crushed the better, so that it can be fully dissolved in the water. Smash the large salt block into small particles, and then grind the small particles into salt powder with the stone. The finer the better. This is the prerequisite for salt making. Now you look carefully. How do I start salt making? As the stone bear said, he put a bag of ground salt into a big wooden basin. There was clear water from the little river in the basin. As soon as the salt powder was put into the water, it immediately melted. Be sure to stir vigorously, so that the salt powder can melt more fully. You must remember this. Shi Xiong stirred with a wooden stick several times, and then instructed the 2 clansmen to raise the wooden basin. On the side of the wooden basin, the tribe had already prepared a large funnel on a wooden shelf. The funnel was also made of wood. At this time, a large bag of activated carbon wrapped in double-layer linen had been stuffed into the funnel. Pour in, be careful not to spill it, it's all salt in it, Shi Xiong said with a smile, and the 2 clansmen who were carrying the tubs began to carefully pour salt water into the funnel. The charcoal has been made into activated carbon, so it will not produce black soup when it is filtered. But when this basin of salt water was poured into the funnel, the salt water flowing out from below was still a bit reddish-brown. Shi Xiong pointed to the tub at the bottom of the funnel and said, "It's not enough to filter it once. It must be filtered several times until the filtered salt water has no other color." Said, Shi Xiong instructed the tribe to continue filtering the basin of salt water that had just been filtered. Of course, the activated carbon in the funnel has been replaced by a pack. The wood here is frantic, and there are also a lot of charcoal fired. There is no need to buckle. After filtering it 3 times in a row, all the people of the clansmen were unneeded by the magical change of the salt water from turbid to clear. This process is filtration. If you want to make the salt mine in this small salt mountain non-toxic, this step is very important, so you must remember that you must not omit the steps because of trouble. If the filtration is not good, a large amount of toxic substances will remain in the salt. People may not die after eating it, but illness is inevitable. Therefore, it must be filtered. Do you remember? The people responded in a sudden. They witnessed the process of turning a basin of turbid salt water into clear water. Naturally, they felt that it was magical, and they would also keep in mind the instructions of the guardian. Ishikama dipped his finger in the salt water that was filtered 3 times, and the bitterness in it had completely disappeared, leaving only the salty taste. Shi Xiong nodded in satisfaction. The salt water has reached this point and basically has reached the requirement of complete detoxification. Most of the impurities such as nitrate, phosphorus and potassium contained in salt have been absorbed by activated carbon. Next is the last process of salt making, that is, boiling salt. Come on, you two, pour this basin of salt water into the pot, light it underneath, and start boiling salt. Under Shi Xiong's order, the pot of salt water was poured into a large iron pot, and a raging fire ignited quickly below. The red flame licked the black pot bottom. Without much effort, the pot of salt water boiled up. Always boil this way, but pay attention to controlling the heat. After the salt water in the pot is less, there is no need for such a big fire, otherwise the salt will boil out, but the pot will burn you out, Shi Xiong said loudly, but everyone burst into laughter. It took about half an hour to boil a pot of water. After a low fire, the water in the pot has completely disappeared. Then the fire was completely extinguished and the pot was lifted. At this time, a thick layer of bluish-white salt was left at the bottom of the pot. Shi Xiong pried off a salt plate, broke it off, put it in his mouth and tasted it, nodded with satisfaction, and said, "Come here and taste it, and see how the salt tastes like we boiled out. I promise you better." The amount of salt exchanged by the Vasichus is much stronger. A group of people hurried over, and a dozen dirty hands suddenly appeared in the iron pot. This taste good. Li Lei was holding a small piece of salt in his hand. He didn't know to break it down anymore. He stuck out his tongue and licked a big mouthful. As a result, the corners of his eyes twitched, but he still yelled happily. Red clouds, tall cows, big feet. Including the tail of the wolf. They all pulled off a piece of salt and licked them. They naturally didn't want them, but this group of guys continued to lick like they were desperate, as if holding a small piece of salt in his hand is the best food in the world. The status of salt in the hearts of North American Indians is too high, even higher than food. It doesn't matter if there is no food in the ground. There are animals in the wilderness and woods that can be eaten, but this salt is different. This thing is the most neck material. Without this thing www.wuxiaspot.com people will be boring and even get sick and die. This is the experience of countless ancestors. In the past, if you wanted to get salt, you could only use precious fur to exchange salt with the greedy Pamunkey people in the east. The Pamunkey people are so greedy that they can't get a small packet of salt for a good wild cowhide. But all the Cherokees had to endure it. There is no way. Who can make salt in this area of hundreds of miles? Only the Pamunkey can make salt. It's all right now. With this method taught by Master Guardian, the salt in this salt mountain can be eaten. Although it takes a little effort, it's better than being exploited by the Pamunkey. And in terms of the size of this small salt mountain, if all the salt in this small salt mountain is refined, it will be enough for the tribe to eat for thousands of years. The carnival began almost immediately. Even if this is not a tribe, even if there is a black blind man and a group of wild wolves on the other side of the Oyan Shan licking stones there, this still cannot stop the enthusiasm of the tribesmen for carnival. A weird dance started. Hong Yun led a group of people and began to pray to the unnamed gods. A dozen sturdy men excitedly carried the iron spears and iron knives and ran out. Before long, a few wolves and the black blind man who was licking the stone just now became prey, and there was also a hapless wild goat. Dancing, praying prayers, barbecue grilling. Anyway, the people of the tribe used the greatest enthusiasm to vent their ecstasy at this time. Of course, there is also a small group of people who did not participate in the carnival. They are carrying a solemn expression, helping each other to repeat the steps of protecting the adults just now. For them, being able to make this kind of exquisite salt is the best way to revel. Chapter 72, Pipeline Working Method. The Oyan Mountain is not very far from the tribe, and because this is the only way for the tribe's people to go up the mountain, the road from the tribe to here is relatively easy. There used to be no clansmen's attention here, although the older generation of clansmen knew that this hill was actually a salt mountain, but the salt here can eat dead people. For tribesmen, this is poison. Who would be interested in poison while idle? However, Since Shi Xiong successfully detoxified the salt produced in this small salt mountain, it has become a more lively place than the tribe. Every day, more than 1/3 of the people come here, and it is full of enthusiasm here. Salt making. Because it involves burning charcoal and boiling salt, the bottom of this small salt mountain is full of smoke almost every day. Fortunately, this kind of smoke is different from the lingering wolf smoke. Once this kind of smoke rises into the air, it will be blown away, otherwise the surrounding tribes would have sent reinforcements to rescue the Gaoshu tribe. The enthusiasm for salt of the Gaoshu tribe, who has been lacking in salt since childhood, is really unexpected, and Shi Xiong even suspects that even people living on this continent in later generations love the green Franklin. I am afraid it is not as good as the tribe's love for salt. Enthusiasm. Shi Xiong didn't want to control this, and he couldn't control it. However, he said that Li Lei and Hong Yun set a rule. Every family who makes salt in Zioyanshan needs to pay 10% for the salt. One of them is to accumulate for the tribe, and when it finally trades with the Vasicus, the tribe will take out the salt as public property to negotiate with the Vasicus. Salt is not only as expensive as gold for North American Indians, but also for those European colonists. Even if it is in Europe on the other side of the ocean, there is also a huge demand gap for salt. Gold and gems can make people crazy, but gold and gems can only be afforded by the rich after all. I am a poor man, I just don't play with gold and gems. What can you do with me? Well, this is a pure mentality. As for the salt, whether you are a dick, a rich man or a real poor man, he needs it. Therefore, compared to gold and gems, table salt is currently the most circulated trading item. Even if the price of table salt is much lower than that of gold and gems, the trading scope of this item is too wide and the rigid demand is too large. From the emperor and the king to the poor and the people even begging for food, there is no one who does not eat salt. In the past, the Gaoshu tribe and the Naziwasi Chus traded with yellow iron, gold, fur, and various gems in exchange for cheap pig iron, cotton, horses, etc. Except for horses, other transactions were actually it was the colonists who fooled these North American Indians as silly children. In the past, even if you knew that this kind of trade was unfair, you had to grit your teeth. There was no way. The tribe needed items from those colonists. But now it's different. There is no shortage of ironware in the tribe. Once you really master the ratio and craftsmanship of steel making in the next step, you won't even lack weapons and tools made of steel. As for other things, except horses, they are not what the tribe needs most. On the contrary, European colonists had a great demand for salt. After all, the number of European colonists living in the 13 colonies in North America at this time was close to 2 million. This is definitely a huge market. Therefore, Shi Xiong absolutely encourages the tribe to make salt spontaneously. The Gaoshu tribe is not far from North Carolina and South Carolina. Although the mountain roads are rugged, don't forget that the salt produced by the Gaoshu tribe is not as rough as the sea salt dried by the Pamunkey people. It is produced by the stone bear method. The kind of salt, even if it is placed in later generations, is not much worse than the so-called refined salt. This kind of salt is absolutely in demand in this era. As long as the tribe masters this salt, then there is no need to worry that the European colonists are not tempted, and they are not afraid of losing money in future transactions. The process of making salt is quite complicated. But if you master the production method of the assembly line, then the salt production is actually very fast. In the past, the people of the tribes used the family as a unit to make salt. However, salt production involves digging salt mountains, burning charcoal, smashing salt blocks, grinding salt powder, filtering, and boiling. Even if there are more people in a family, how much salt can be made in one day? Shi Xiong saw the shortcomings of this kind of scattered salt production at a glance, so he called the people together again and held a short meeting. Will you use your mind? Are you going to fight alone like this, Grey Moose? Let me ask you, how many people are in your family? The named Grey Moose stood up and said, Respected guardian, there are 6 people in our family, me, my wife, 2 sons and 2 daughters. Then how much salt can your family make a day? Words made the gray moose a little embarrassed, and he couldn't say it for a long time. Shi Xiong waited for the veteran soldier to glance, and said angrily, "I think your family is busy all day. I'm afraid you can't even make a bag of salt." These words made the gray moose family feel a little bit ashamed. www.wuxiaspot.com. Shi Xiong ignored the family, stood up and continued, "Salt making is actually a very cooperative work. Just like our soldiers are fighting, time needs to cooperate. Think about it. What is the result of your own fighting? That is, dozens of family members are busy all day, and they may not even be able to produce 20 bags of salt." Most of the clansmen bowed their heads. Master Guardian was right, that's the truth. The Gray Moose family is considered to be the most populous family in the tribe, and the family can work, but even so, the Gray Moose family can't get much salt in a day. So, you should unite. Shi Xiong's right finger pointed at all the tribesmen, and then drew a circle. You should all know by now, in the process of salt production, the most effort is to dig the salt mountain and smash it. Salt these 2 kinds of jobs. Then why don't you unite and gather the strongest men among you to do these 2 kinds of jobs? As for salt grinding, we now have a tamed bison pulp mill. This process does not require many people at all. Even the children of the family can do it. And the work of burning charcoal, can a woman do it? Filtering and boiling, women can do the same. If you can unite, separate everyone from each family, and assign someone to do a fixed job, then your efficiency will be improved several times. These words made all the tribesmen thoughtful, and some of the tribesmen already had an emotional look on their faces. If you do what I said, then if you don't make 60 bags of salt a day, then my method is proved to be wrong. But, can I be wrong? So, under Shi Xiong's guidance, all the tribesmen involved in salt production reached an agreement to adopt the assembly line production method that Master Guardian said. Chapter 73, The Extinct Pumpkin Bay Tribe. We actually produced so much salt in the past few days. Li Lei looked at the dozens of bags of salt stored in the tribe's warehouse, and the chin shell almost fell off. This is only 1/10 of the salt produced by our tribesmen in the past 7 or 8 days. According to the rules established with the tribe, the salt here was handed in by the tribesmen. Shi Xiong said lightly, "More the salt is now kept in the family's home." "Why, is there so much salt?" Li Lei asked Shi Xiong with a look of curiosity. He has been busy helping the Pumpkin Bay tribe these days, so he is concerned about the tribal people in the tribe who are refining salt. Not much. Just 7 days ago, on the second day, Shi Xiong taught the assembly line production methods to the Gaoshu tribesmen. A thick smoke rose from the northwest. This was definitely set off when the Cherokee tribe was attacked again. Wolf smoke. So at that time, Li Lei sent Big Feet and Jiao Niu to organize more than 50 warriors in the tribe and drove in that direction quickly. It was not until yesterday, 6 days after the tribe's warriors, that Stone Bear knew that the Pumpkin Bay tribe in the northwest was attacked by the Chicashes. The process of the Pumpkin Bay tribe being attacked was almost the same as that of the Shaggy Cow tribe. The process of being attacked is exactly the same. A group of Chickasha warriors with more than 100 people did not know where they broke through the central defense line, bypassed the Great South Fork, and appeared in the Pumpkin Bay tribe. Then these Chickasha fighters decisively launched a massacre on this small tribe with a population of only 70 or 80 people. When the lonely Bigfoot and Jiao Niu returned to the tribe with the warriors in the tribe, the people in the tribe knew that the Pumpkin Bay tribe had suffered annihilation. The Long Hairy Cattle tribe escaped with more than 20 people, but the Pumpkin Bay tribe was wiped out, and no one escaped. The Pumpkin Bay tribe was also a small tribe that was separated from the Gaoshu tribe. They separated even later than the Long Hairy Cattle tribe. Now some of the tribes in the tribe, and even the people in the Pumpkin Bay tribe, have a very direct relationship, blood relationship. For example, the father of the current leader of the Pumpkin Bay tribe is the uncle of Li Lei, Bigfoot and Hong Yun, and the current leader of Pumpkin Bay is a relative uncle and brother to Li Lei in terms of blood relationship. This relationship is very close. It's just that the Pumpkin Bay tribe is located on the north shore of the Wan, not on the south shore of the Wan. If the Pumpkin Bay tribe is located on the south bank of the Big Bend, then there is a Big Bend blocking it, and those Chi caches will certainly not force the Big Bend to attack the Pumpkin Bay tribe. It's a pity that when the Pumpkin Bay tribe separated, no one would have thought that the Chi cache would have learned to attack by detour. Bigfoot took the warriors and the warriors of other tribes who met on the road to chase down the Chi caches, but they went late and wandered in the mountains for 3 or 4 days, and finally they couldn't find those Chi caches. People, worried about the safety of the tribe, and finally Bigfoot led the warriors back to the tribe. What brought back together was the sad news of the genocide of Pumpkin Bay. For this reason, the prosperous salt production work has been suspended for 1 day, and many people of the tribe need to pay tribute to their dead relatives. Shi Xiong is also very sad. At the last funeral of the couple sacrifice, Stone Bear communicated with the leader of the Pumpkin Bay tribe, Black Pumpkin, very refreshingly. He wanted to communicate more with the Black Pumpkin, who is good at planting various crops. As a result, it lasted for half a month. If there is none, heaven and man will be separated forever. Black Pumpkin is the name of the leader of the Pumpkin Bay tribe. He is called this name, and his father and ancestors also called this name before. It can be seen from the name that their family are very good at planting pumpkins. In fact, the name of the Pumpkin Bay tribe is also derived from the biggest advantage of the Black Pumpkin family planting pumpkins. After the Pumpkin Bay tribe moved to the north bank of Big Bend, a wide bend of the Tennessee River to the south, so the name of the tribe was named Pumpkin Bay. Although Shi Xiong has never been to the Pumpkin Bay tribe, he heard the people talk about that place, which is a good place to produce pumpkins. It's a pity that there are still pumpkins, but people who are good at planting pumpkins will never see it. This is a very sad thing, but it is very helpless in this era. From the standpoint of the Cherokee, the genocide of the Pumpkin Bay tribe is an extremely tragic and sad thing, but from the standpoint of the rival Chickasaw, this is an out-and-out victory. Position determines thinking. This is still common in this era. Lilay, who has been busy with the Pumpkin Bay tribe these days, naturally does not know what happened in the tribe these days. Although he can't lead the warriors to chase the enemy, he can lead some people to the Pumpkin Bay tribe to deal with follow-up matters. So Lilay has actually been on the Pumpkin Bay tribe these days. The straight line distance between the two tribes only more than 30 miles. Now that Lilay had spared his energy and time, he found that there was so much white and delicate salt in the tribe's warehouse, which naturally made Lilay a little overjoyed. I'm reading www.hookenshoe.com also dilutes the Pumpkin Bay tribes being the sorrow caused by the extermination. To be honest, Shi Xiong didn't feel very good about Lilay. This guy is not the same as Jiao Niu's straightforward temperament, and Lilay looked a bit overcast. For example, he has been saying to support himself unconditionally, but in fact there are many nasty things that should have happened under his sign, like the wolf tail thing. Ishikama can also understand this. After all, Lilay is the leader of the Gaoshu tribe. He and Jiao Niu are both outsiders, and he has actually been favored by the Kabul priest, which will inevitably arouse Lilay's jealousy. Even if I changed myself to Lilay, I am afraid I would have this attitude. But fortunately, this guy still knows how to measure, and he didn't do any brain-dead things. Otherwise Shi Xiong really wouldn't mind finding an opportunity to secretly kill this guy. Other things are easy to say, but if anyone dares to be a stumbling block on their way forward, then Stone Bear will never mind smashing that stumbling block directly. Since Lilay had no plans to dare his face, Shi Xiong was happy to maintain the current situation. So for Lilay's question, Shi Xiong used the shortest words to introduce him to the tribal salt making in the past few days. Chief, the salt stored in the warehouse was paid by the clansmen. There are now 72 bags, and the amount of salt in the hands of the clansmen is 9 times this amount. With these table salt, wait for the tiles. After the Western Choose trading team comes to the tribe, we can exchange them for better and more things. Chief, please remember that salt is very, very precious to us. But the same is true for those tiles. As far as Western Chew is concerned, this thing is no worse than yellow iron and precious stones. So we must not make a losing trade. Chapter 74 Vasiku's trading team. To be honest, Li Lei was a little unhappy with the tone of the guardian's words. In fact, when Shi Xiong was preparing to make steel, Li Lei still supported Shi Xiong because he was dying at that time. Of course he wanted to find a strong backer for the people. But when Li Lei's injury miraculously began to improve, he gradually began to have opinions on the stone bear. Li Lei, whose injury improved, was instinctively unwilling to disperse the power in his hands, and did not want to see anyone challenging his tribal leader. Authority. The way Shi Xiong speaks and acts as well as his magical identity made Li Lei feel instinctively jealous. After all, this sturdy body contains a soul from more than 250 years later, a stone bear who has received modern education from later generations. It is really difficult to abide by the rules of respect and inferiority. Shi Xiong, who has received decades of education in Born Equal, even dared to make a red face to the curator or deputy curator in his previous life. In this era, you expect him to offer Li Lei as his grandfather. That is absolutely not possible thing. Therefore, the look that Shi Xiong inadvertently reveals when he talks and handles affairs makes Li Lei very upset. But there is nothing to do with the thunder. If it is said that after the guardian made iron tools, his prestige in the tribe has become extremely high, then now he has made salt, which is enough to push the guardian's reputation to surpass the tribe leader or even cover the point of sacrifice. Li Lei knew very well that if he had a conflict with the Great Bear at this time, it is estimated that more than 80% of the tribe would stand on the side of the guardian. He, the leader of the tribe, is nothing at all in front of the guardian, whose prestige has almost been raised to the extreme. The highest leader of the entire Gaoshu tribe, including the dozens of small tribes in the surrounding area, is actually the Kabul sacrifice, and his own leader is just the administrator of the Kabul sacrifice and management of the tribe. With the guardian who was unconditionally supported by the Kabul sacrifice, now they have produced so many things and things that are beneficial to the tribe's clansmen can naturally distinguish between them. The most important thing is that although Li Lei feels very uncomfortable now, he now believes in another identity of Great Bear, which is the identity of the Son of God. Otherwise, with the silly head of Li Xiong who only knew how to eat and drink, how could he come up with so many unprecedented things? Li Lei is the leader of the tribe again, but he is always a devout believer in the gods. Regarding the inexplicable phenomenon that happened to the Great Bear, he firmly believes that this is the miracle of the gods. Therefore, Li Lei could only endure the unconvinced in his heart and nodded silently. The trading team of the Vasicist came, and a total of 20 people came, drove the horse-drawn carriage for more than 20 years, and the carriage was full of goods. These 20-odd Vasicus are all tall and middle-aged men, each carrying a long flintlock pistol on his body, and wearing a short blunderbuss and a machete around his waist, which can be described as a complete suit. Armed. The arrival of the trading team made the whole tribe boil again. Although the Pumpkin Bay tribe was exterminated just now, it was a separated tribe after all, but now Vasiku's trading team has a great relationship with himself. Therefore, even the tribesmen who made salt under the Zioyan mountain did not make salt. All the Wuiyang Yang people returned to the tribe, and they took out the things they had prepared for a long time and prepared to trade what they liked and needed with the Vasicus. Shi Xiong's brows furrowed slightly as he looked at the tribesmen with their eyebrows open and smiling. In the memory of Silly Head, when Silly Head was living in the Long-Hair Cattle tribe, he could see Waxiku's trading team 2 or 3 times a year. But the Silly Head at that time didn't understand anything, and he had nothing to like, so the Silly Head had never exchanged anything from Vasiku's hands. Now, the people of the Gaoshu tribe are all beaming. This is obviously the appearance of being slaughtered. Therefore, Shi Xiong intends to come forward, and can't just let the tribe people be slaughtered for nothing. Transaction is a very old method of exchange. Humans had the activity of trading a long time ago. It's just that in the long ago, most of them were bartering things. Later, with the emergence of currency played an irreplaceable role in transactions. But anyway, transactions should be exchanged for things of similar value, which is the so-called equality. But now, These Vasicus take advantage of the needs of North American Indians to exchange low-value things for high-value things. This in itself is a very unfair transaction, and it can even be called exploitation. But there was no other way to change this situation in the past. The goods brought by the Vasicus were not good things in Europe or even in the 13 colonies, but they were what North American Indians needed. Where there is demand, there is a market. Those Vasicus have grasped this point, and can exchange a lot of precious furs, gold and gems from the Indians with less valuable things. Who makes you like our stuff? The Vasicus all say so frankly. The Wasicus carriages cannot enter the tribe. www.wuxiaspa.com. Their camp is in a forest about 500 meters away from the tribe, and then they will send representatives to discuss large-scale transactions with Lele. After roughly determining what items the tribe needs to trade, the tribesmen in the tribe will enter the Wasiku camp and trade according to their own preferences. This is a private transaction. The Cherokees in this era do not have any concept of privatization. Hunting and growing food, including the salt production that has just started, will be handed over to the tribes, and the tribes will then distribute them in a unified manner to realize the sharing of resources of the tribes. Just like the salt made by the tribesmen in the past 7 or 8 days, in addition to giving 10% to the tribe, the other salt they made will also be handed over to the tribe. It's just that the 10% of table salt does not belong to the tribe, while the 90% of table salt belongs to the entire tribe. It's a bit contradictory to say that, but it's true, that 10% of the salt is equivalent to the tax paid by the tribe, and it belongs to the control of the tribe. Although the remaining 90% of the salt will be handed over to the tribe, the salt will eventually be distributed to each tribe by the tribe, and the salt will also be distributed to the tribe, rather than under the complete control of the tribe. When Vasicchu's trading team came, each household would take out their treasures and hand them over to the tribe, and the tribe's senior staff would be responsible for negotiating with those Vasicchus. In the end, the exchanged items are being distributed to the tribesmen. Of course, the people of the tribe also have something in their hands, and these things are the main items for private transactions in the future. In any case, although this kind of transaction is very unfair, it is always a good thing for the backward North American Indians. Things like horses, ironware, cloth, seeds, etc. in the tribe were exchanged from the hands of these Vasicus. Chapter 75. The tragic first batch of immigrants in England. The Cabra priest more than 200 years ago was unwilling to trade with Vasiku because he foresaw the slaughter of the tribesmen by Vasiku, and voluntarily resigned from his position as the high priest of Cherokee and brought the tribe with him. So why are we now able to trade with the Vasicus again? Standing under a tree outside the deliberating hall, watching the busy people move a lot of things from their homes, Shi Xiong asked Hong Yun in a low voice. Hong Yun shook his head and said, I am not very clear about the specific situation inside, but when I was a child, I heard my mother say that when our Cherokee moved south to near Monongahela, we defeated the Pau who was entrenched there. The dance forced the Pointons to migrate east. We occupied a large area near Monongahela. When we stabilized, the expedition team from Vasicchu came to our tribe. They claimed to be French at that time. The Cabru sacrificial palpitations of these Vasicus came, so they used their skills, and as a result, they vaguely felt the slaughter of our people by the Vasicus, so she asked the chief not to treat the French people kindly. But the French brought precious ironware, cotton cloth, beautiful green crystal cups and delicious drinks. These things confused the chief's mind. Therefore, the chief did not agree to the request of the Cabra sacrifice. My ancestor led the tribe to leave the Cherokee royal court. French? Shi Xiong shook his head slightly, then looked at the two Vasicus under another tree in the distance who were talking with Lele leader, and immediately guessed that the Gaoshu tribe can interact with these Europeans. Reasons for the colonial trade. Did you change someone? Shi Xiong asked abruptly. Hong Yun was taken aback when he heard it, and didn't understand what he meant. I mean, is it true that the Vasicus who have been trading with our tribe since then were not the French people that the ancestor who Cabru sacrificed to meet? They became English, and these England people are more kind to us, So the tribe will trade with them? Hong Yun's eyes widened in surprise. How did you know? It looks like I guessed it right. Shi Xiong smiled and said non-committal. In fact, from the clothes worn by these Vassages, Stone Bear can tell that this group of people is not the same group of French people that the ancestor of the Cabru sacrificed to. The Cherokee moved to the vicinity of Monongahela in about 200 years, which is the area at the junction of the 4 states of Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Before the Cherokee arrived, the Vatan was indeed the most powerful force in this area. Although the Pointons at the time had more than 10,000 people, they were still not opponents against the Cherokee, who had more than 30,000 people. The Pointons fought several battles with the Cherokees, and they all lost. In addition, the Pointons did not want to cause more casualties, so they voluntarily left Monongahela and moved east to the eastern part of Virginia. And there they wooed a group of local tribes to establish the Powhatan Alliance with more than 20,000 people, and controlled the coastal areas of Virginia and eastern Maryland. Stone Bear knows the history of North American Indians, so he knows that when the Cherokee defeated the Pointons, it was about the middle of the 16th century, almost exactly 200 years ago. At that time, apart from the Spaniards who conquered Central and South America and established colonies in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas along the Gulf Coast, the central and northern parts of the North American continent had not any other European country has established a colony, and only expeditions of the Portuguese, British, French, Dutch, Germans and other Europeans are active in the north-central part of North America. The French people that the ancestor of the Cabru sacrifice met in the Cherokee Palace at that time were an expedition team. It is a pity that although the prophecy of the Cabru to worship the ancestors was accurate, it made a fundamental mistake. North American Indians were massacred by the Wasatches in Europe in the future. This is undoubtedly a fact. Unfortunately, it was not the first French people she encountered that killed the Indians, but the descendants of the British. Of course, it cannot be said that the prediction of the ancestor Cabru was wrong. In her eyes, European colonists are all the same, and they are all called Vassaku. Perhaps the ancestor who sacrificed to the ancestors of Cabru had foreseen the massacres of the Vassages, and the French expedition reported that his family came from the great French Empire, so the entire Gaoshu tribe obeyed Cabru. The last words of sacrifice to ancestors prohibit trading with the French. The problem is that European colonists are not only French, but also English, Portuguese, Dutch, German. Therefore, when the English came into contact with the Gaoshu tribe and declared themselves to be an Englishman and a mortal enemy of the French, the Gaoshu tribe opened its mind and started a deal with the English, which lasted for dozens of times. Time of year. In fact, when the English first set foot on the North American continent, their attitude towards the Indians was really kind. If it weren't for their descendants to slaughter more than 2 million North American Indians, it would be hard for you to imagine that these English people who first set foot on the North American continent would have such brutal descendants. From the end of the 15th century to the beginning of the 17th century, with the development of British overseas trade and primitive capital accumulation, British capitalism developed rapidly. Following the victory over Spain in 1588, he successively defeated the Netherlands and launched a fierce struggle for hegemony worldwide with France. Shi Xiong accelerated the British colonization of North America. In 1606, King James I of England authorized 2 joint stock companies, the London Company, also known as the Virginia Company, and the Plymouth Company, later merged with the Massachusetts Gulf Company, which were composed of large merchants and land nobles, as a charter, grant them the privilege of developing colonies in North America. This is a comprehensive organization that integrates overseas commerce, smuggling, piracy, and slave trade. In May 1607, the London Company condemned the arrival of the first immigrants to North America and established Jamestown on the north bank of the James River, also called Jamestown. These immigrants included 105 people including speculators, bankrupt gentlemen, and white indentured slaves. The newly built Jamestown was just a wild grassy wilderness. The immigrants built a church, a fort and a few huts here, and began their new life in North America. But the nightmare of the first British immigrants has just begun. Due to the plague, smallpox, and yellow fever, the mortality rate of immigrants is extremely high. According to research, only 32 of the first immigrants survived. Since then, in order to survive and develop, white indentured slaves have increased day by day, and Jamestown has gradually developed into a colony of Virginia. After the outbreak of the British Bourgeois Revolution, many royalists and land aristocrats also migrated to Virginia, and most of them became local new aristocrats and large plantation owners. These include the Washington family, the Madison family, and the Monroe family. Well, these families have had the previous presidents of the United States. At this time, the English people who had just immigrated to the North American New World could not be tough. Although the English immigrants who came to the North American New World were not good people, and the first immigrants who had just arrived died in the first British Point battle, a lot of people, so the English people at this time are actually very tragic. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.